Good afternoon, everybody. This is Agrode, founder and CEO of Splinterlands, and it is an absolute pleasure to be hosting another Splinterlands town hall with all of you. I am excited that today we get to go have Matt. This is the other co-founder, our head of product, and the guy that's leading up how we're going to whip up land and what that's all going to look like. And I know a lot of people are stoked to hear about land and find out what's going on. So we're gonna certainly take some time to talk through that. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but some of the market conditions have changed. We've seen Bitcoin going up in price rather than going down. That to me is really exciting. It's some people say, "Oh, I like to build in bear markets," and I think those people are liars. It is more fun and better to build in bull markets or even just slightly bullish markets. Excited to be where we are, and I don't know. It's just got a different feel to it. So, welcome to the town hall. Thank you to the community for joining us. Let's go talk to the team and see what's going to be on today's docket. What are we going to be discussing and what's going on here? So, Matt, why don't you kick us off? What are you mostly here to discuss today?
And
that he says as short and precise, short and sweet. What about you, Nate?
Take time away from the discussion later.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm in the same boat. I'm gonna, since we're talking about land, I'll probably show some land or whatever.
Sweet. InvestyGator?
I'm here to talk about the updates going out tomorrow.
Sweet. Weirdbeard?
Today I'm talking about gladiator tournaments and how cool they are.
All right. And then lastly, Grapthar.
We're going to go through a support article and talk about account recovery generally.
All right, so we're gonna kick it off with Grapthar. We want him to get back to support, but we did want to go kind of give him just a couple minutes to walk us through account recovery and just what this stuff looks like. And then right after that, we'll be talking with the wizards and seeing what's on the docket for land. So go ahead, Grapthar. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you talking about today?
I'm Grapthar, of course. I work for Splinterlands support. I'm a tech support lead, and today we were going to go over how to change your recovery account, but I also just wanted to talk about recovery and keys in general, along with specifically Hive Ledger, which is something people have been using a lot recently with their Ledger hardware wallets. That's presented some problems for our players, so I wanted to let people know about that.
All right, walk us through it. Go for it. Okay.
So we have an article. I'm not sure if Rondon was going to show that or not. If not, it's fine. I can just go through it. It's how to change your recovery account. Essentially, you can go to our support.splinterlands.com and search for that if this is something you want to do.
Will you just start more basically? What is a recovery account?
Okay, so when you sign up for Splinterlands or make a Hive account elsewhere, there's an account that is considered your recovery account. If you make your account through us, it is our Steam Monsters account, and it can be used to essentially recover and make brand new keys for you if you ever lose all of your keys and they are compromised by someone else and you don't have access to them at all. So we're able to essentially save the account for you in that case.
So why does a recovery account matter?
Well, in most other blockchain spaces, if you lose your keys or if someone gets them and changes them on you, you're stuck. That's the end of the story, and your funds are gone, and that's it. Here, in most cases, if you do things correctly and have us as the recovery account and all sorts of other things, but generally we're able to save you from that fate and ideally protect your assets. And if you have cards locked and things like that, then you can protect yourself too if you ever lose the keys while we do the recovery.
So when you're advocating this, is a goal here to tell everybody switch to Steam Monsters or Splinterlands as your backup account, or what are you suggesting?
No, I wouldn't recommend you do that. That would make verification very difficult. But if you made your account through us, we are the recovery by default. However, we'd like people long-term to learn how to use their own recovery accounts and set up their own backup accounts with their keys stored offline for those, so they can have an account that can recover all of their accounts if they have multiple accounts or things like that.
All right.
That would be the long-term goal.
Okay. So walk us through. I think I get a sense of what we're doing. So what do you want to show us, or what would we actually do?
So to change your recovery account, a lot of people would do this if they purchased an account from someone and the recovery account on that was maybe the previous owner, and you didn't want that person to potentially be able to take the account back from you, change keys on you, something like that. You would go and follow these steps here. You can go to PeakD. First, you need the most recent owner key, which ideally you would have if you purchased this account and updated keys. In PeakD in the top right, you would log in, of course. You can log in via Keychain or Hive Signer. The last step of this will use Hive Signer, but either way can be used to log in. That's just the initial, how you get into the website. Step 3 is showing the Keychain login. Sorry, we're not there yet on the image. Yep. And step 4 shows Hive Signer as login, which some people also use as opposed to Keychain. That's just general login stuff. I'm sure most people know how to do that. Step 5, when you get into PeakD, you can go to the top right. You'll click your username. On the top right, you'll see a little avatar image and your name. And then under that, you'll click Wallet. And step 6, when you get to that wallet screen, you can click on Account Actions. It'll be in almost the top right of the screen. And then below that in the drop down, it's going to say Keys and Permissions. And in this screen, there's various things you could do here. It has authority, so it'll show you like if you've given rental authority or voting authority to various services. So you can check those things here too, and also change your password. But in this case, we're going to recovery account, which is the farthest right option in step 7. Yep, and from there you'll scroll down and you'll see where it says change recovery account and change with Hive Signer. The change with Hive Signer option is the easiest for everyone. So when you click that, it'll take you to step 9, which will ask you what account you want to make your recovery account. Ideally, this would be an account of yours that you have the keys for, and maybe the keys stored completely offline, an account that you have never used for anything. It is only a recovery account for you, so you've never risked having the keys anywhere. And then step 10, there's sort of a step in between here, which is not shown, but Hive Signer is going to ask you for your owner key. It walks you through that. That's very simple, but you will need the owner key. You'll input that, and then you'll approve the change in recovery account, and then it'll broadcast that transaction. This change in recovery account does take 30 days after you broadcast that transaction to become permanent. So you will need to be careful in that time period if you're worried about anything happening and needing to recover an account. But it's a pretty easy process. I think most people would be able to do it just going through these steps. I also wanted to talk in general though about keys. We've noticed lately people have been using, there's a new service called Hive Ledger, and people who have Ledger hardware wallets can now put their Hive keys on their Ledger. This has resulted in us doing a lot of recoveries recently because the Ledger essentially just locks up your keys. That's the point of it. It takes your keys and puts them on the hardware device, and you cannot get to them. That's the whole purpose of it. But we don't have Ledger login yet. And people don't understand that when their keys are on the device, they can't get them back off of it, and they've been changed to get them on the device. So we've had a lot of issues with people who need full recoveries, thinking that they're being safe and setting up ledgers. There's actually a couple PeakD articles. I don't have them on hand, but it's not a big deal. If you have a ledger and you're setting this up, we recommend that you don't change the posting or active keys. You can change and lock up your owner key on the hardware wallet. So that is safe for recovery later. But if you change your posting and active keys, you're not going to be able to do anything in Splinterlands with the Ledger, at least as of now. We might have Ledger support in the future. I don't know. But that's been a big problem recently, and it's resulted in a lot of people requiring recovery, which is not difficult, but it is a process, and people will need to verify their ownership of the account and all that stuff.
So in the meantime, what's the primary advice if they want to work with the Ledger?
You can allow it to change your owner key, not the posting and active keys. Otherwise, it will change them and lock them in the device, and you will not have access to them. You won't be able to use your keychain anymore to get in because those old keys will no longer be valid. So if you really want to use a Ledger for Hive, you can have it change your owner key only. But I'd recommend people just wait on using it right now. It's confused a lot of people because it does all kinds of changing of keys and locking of keys, and yeah.
Okay, noted. Anything else you wanna mention while we're here?
No, I think that's it. Always use Hive keychain though. If we're talking about keys, don't put your keys in random places. Don't send them to your friends via email. Keep your owner key and master password safe offline somewhere, backed up, multiple places. You know, all the usual key safety recommendations.
There you go. All right, Grapthar, thanks for walking us through a little support tutorial. I appreciate what the support team has done, and thanks for being part of our community and helping all these folks with all their problems. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. So I think we ought to talk about land, and the right guy for that is a young man by the name of Matt Rosen, and InvestyGator is here too. So we have our wizards. So Matt, why don't you? I don't think you need an intro, but if you want to do any kind of intro, you're welcome to. And then let's just dive straight into land.
Sure. Did you want Investy to talk about the release tomorrow first, or you want to do that after land?
We can do that first. It sounds like that's the way to go. InvestyGator, do you want to go tell us what's happening tomorrow?
Sure. We've actually got a lot of stuff going out tomorrow, though I still feel like the land one's probably going to be a longer talk. So, as we previously announced, Soulbound reward cards are going to be coming out tomorrow. We're going to be ending the print run of all the previous cards and all of the items that were mentioned in the article we posted. Potions being used for reward cards, the new abilities, the 43 new cards. Also going to be going out tomorrow is the 13th airdrop card for Chaos Legion, the Astral Entity. So people don't need to ask when airdrop. We've got some gameplay updates. As part of the changes going out with the new set of cards, we're making a few rules changes. One that was previously mentioned was Dispel, removing Bloodlust. Also, Bloodlust is no longer going to be as good in reverse speed, as it will always give you +1 speed instead of -1 speed when it's in reverse speed matches. So nerfs to Bloodlust, since they will be playable in ranked with the new Conscript ability. There is also going to be some cleanup of the rule sets after the 3 rule sets changed last week. So Fog of War should no longer appear with Equal Opportunity, Super Sneak, or Target Practice. And we're changing Opportunity so that it no longer attacks through Fog of War, which is a pretty big change. We've got a lot of stuff going out tomorrow. So tech modernization. We are adding a new DEC management page, or Dark Energy Crystal management page. This is also going to be where DC batteries are going to be sold, though that is not going out tomorrow. The UI will be there, but it's not going to be enabled for another week. Hopefully, only another week. There's some dependent changes with the SPS validators that are done but not tested. So we would like to do some testing on them before we push them out to production. We are finally adding the challenge notification and gift acknowledgements onto the tech modernization pages. So you will now get notified if someone sends you a direct challenge or if you get cards sent over. There's also a lot of cleanup to the notifications on the tech modernization page. We fixed some issues where there were incorrect, like it was showing the tournament ID on some of the tournament notifications. And some other updates. So we are cleaning up the other items page so that it will now show all of the items, whether you have one or not. So you can transfer things in and out of the game, regardless of whether you have the item in game already, which is something that has been a quality of life item that's a long time coming. For land, there's some UI improvements to the land deed market. And there's some cleanup on the DEC SPS purchase page. There was a brief outage of Simple Swap during the past week, and during that time, it was showing weird data on trying to swap for DEC or SPS. So we added some better error handling around that. Cleanups to the market. So when you go to list a card for sale or for rent, it will now enforce the minimum pricing on the UI end, whereas before it would send the request to the server, which would error out, send you back an error, and waste a bunch of processing time to tell you that you're pricing something too low. And a whole bunch of performance updates, small changes throughout the code to try to improve performance, mainly with database calls. And I guess I'll mention some of the things we pushed out during the past week. So as most people know, rental markets have been having a lot of issues. We made substantial changes during the past week to help address performance issues, fix some long-standing issues where you could update prices to below what the minimums are supposed to be for listing items. And we also did push some updates to the mobile version to fix being able to play with 3 rule sets. And we also found that there was an issue with notification volume, which I think was a pretty common complaint on Discord about the sounds being too loud. So apparently it was not respecting the notification settings. Regardless of what you set the volume to, it was just going to a default. So we actually patched that out pretty early last week, right after the last update. And that is pretty much what's going out tomorrow. As I said, big update.
Yeah. So, my brain is sort of like, holy crap. You were just like listing things for a couple minutes there of all the stuff that's going into development. My brain has been telling me we are shipping more code faster than we ever have before. Like, is this a symptom of that? Did we just have a bunch of this backlogged and now we're ready to release, or is this really like evident of what we're able to push out these days?
Both. I mean, it's last week I feel like was a pretty light update. So a lot of this is stuff that was done but not ready to go, stuff that was pending testing. But I think all of this is kind of a symptom of us, improving our turnaround and getting a lot more code done. I mean, this is a lot of stuff going out this week.
Yeah.
And next week, we're probably going to have a whole bunch of stuff going out too, with stuff that Cryptomancer's been working on. And DECB hopefully should be ready to go next week. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, kudos to the team. Hopefully, like having that much is also sort of nerve wracking, right? Because like tomorrow is going to be a big drop and who knows how that all goes. But I don't know, just hearing that list and then that list going on and on and on, like that to me is super healthy. And hopefully we'll get through this, the update, and hopefully it'll be clean and we'll have like a functioning game without any downtime. The team has been really good about that. So thank you. InvestyGator, I know that you're doing a lot with the sort of deployment of the upgrades or the changes. So thank you for your work. And I don't know, I'm pretty stoked for this. If we keep at this pace, it's, there's just so much that we can get done and built. I really like the way that we have things set up now. I think it's going really well. So anything that you're particularly excited about? I mean, I think you kind of buried the lead a little with like the the SBS validator. You're just like, oh, the validators will be functioning, and that's like all you said. But that to me is like one of these giant projects that we've been doing forever. So it's not like live in. It's not ready for like everybody to run one yet. But this is really like the first time that it's running in full private mode, and like everything we want is there. Maybe not the entire future, but what does it mean that you made a sentence of validators are going live? What does that mean?
They're not going live tomorrow. We've got a whole bunch of updates for the validators and the bridge and moving lot of our processing off to be on the validator end. It's coded but not tested, so we're going to be hopefully getting that out. Again, next week is going to be a bunch of stuff too, so that's hopefully going to be part of the first February update. But yeah, we should be moving voucher handling, I believe, completely into the validators. It should be a pretty big update on that end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stoked. Just getting that out and getting these other pieces, and not just getting the other pieces out, but like, you know, here's some movement in validators, while movement in land and movement in a million different edits and moving in just the different places. I don't know. We're in a lot of spots all at once. So kudos to the team. I just feel like we are shipping code as fast as we've ever done. I don't remember updates that are that long, even in our busiest weeks. Things seem to be picking up. So real big kudos to the team. Okay. I think that's anything else you want to add, Harry? Did we miss anything, or anything else that you want us to consider?
Nothing else, except that I'm excited about the Soulbound reward card changes. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting multiple reward cards out of my chests, and turn it over to Matt, because I'm also curious to hear all this land news.
Yeah, you and everybody else at the company. All right, Matt. So we got land. You're on the spot. You're the kind of like land guy. I know you're not coding every single part of this, but you're planning a lot of this. You know, what is land? What is this shaping up to be? How do you think about this in general? And just, you know, give me just like the high level. What is land, and why is it here? I know most people know, but there's going to be some new people that are part of this community hearing about land for the first time.
Yeah, that's good. I'll start with an overview of the whole thing and how we think about it. Then I want to talk about the current proposal, which I know is very controversial, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then we'll get into like actually the details that we're planning. So, you know, at a high level, land aimed to fix a kind of big problem in general with trading card games, which is sort of like what the heck do you do with all the old cards, the big boxes of Magic Gathering cards I have in the basement, the stuff like that. And so, you know, kind of from very early on in this, we had envisioned this whole other part of the battle that used items and spells, right? This whole, you pick your team, then you see the battlefield, and then you can do this whole other part. We you know, we're not able to actually build all that back in like 2018 when we originally built the game. And then over time, we kind of realized, well, you know, we could just introduce these things later and sell them in packs. But that's kind of like boring and not as much fun and interesting as we could make it. So that's when kind of like land was born, as like, instead of us just like, we create these cards and sell them in packs like normal. We actually allow the players through the land expansion to basically play a game where the end result of the game is producing these new cards that then other players would need to purchase in order to play. And use them in their battles, and then that also became, you know, a great use for the older cards that you may not use in your battles anymore. It's basically, you know, the old cards work to produce the new cards. So it was, you know, it was a concept that we really loved as gamers, and that's, you know, so we set out years ago at this point, in, you know, pre-selling the land and kind of building this whole thing out. And it's basically an entire second game, like within Splinterlands, you know, a more resource management, empire building game. So it's a big project, to say the least, but that's the overview. Anything else you wanted to throw in there, Aggie?
You know, there's lots of people here. When we build games, we build them on the pillars of community, economy, and gameplay. And Matt has teams and teams of people that think about the gameplay, and so my brain doesn't always like live there. I think a lot about community, and I think a lot about economy. And when I think about, like, part of what got me so jazzed about this entire thing, and what I'm so stoked for, is that like no other trading card game ever turned around to the players and said, "Here, you mint the cards, you do this." Like, that's the most crypto freaking thing that we could do. It's just like, you know, the cards, you know, Neil McSpadden, one of our whales, put together a spreadsheet that shows like, here's all the value in the ecosystem. and it's somewhere around $200 million, right? It's not all one thing, but we've made something like $200 million worth of stuff in this ecosystem, and we're going to turn the printing press for that, the minting rights to that, over to you, the player. And I think that's the most cryptoist thing that we can do. And it's like as hardcore crypto as possible for sort of a company operating a game to turn to the users and say, you own the printing press. Here are some rules. Here's how it operates, but you own it. And I that's what I get jazzed about, is like, let's empower the players. That's what crypto's about. And let's take some of the focus on the company or the like lead development project here. Let's take some of that power away from us. Let's give it to the people, and hopefully, like, the stuff that you print will be a substantial part of that overall value of this economy, which could be like hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what we're turning over to the players, and excited to see what does it actually turn into. Okay, so that's what I get pumped about. So let's talk next steps. I mean, I think that there's a proposal that maybe you want to talk about at a high level, and then as we kind of go through the different parts of land, people can make sense of whether that it makes sense to get these potions, support this or not. So deck B, land potions, do you want to kind of set that up at a high level?
Yeah, I mean, the proposal is basically on whether or not people should there should be an option where people can spend DEC or DECB to get better chances of higher rarity or better resources on their land when the surveying process goes live, which should be within the next month or so, is our hope. So it's similar to the potions that exist for the current packs. You get these potions and you have a higher chance of getting better cards or gold foil cards when you open packs. So same concept applied to land. Now, obviously for land, they would not be called potions. Potions were not mentioned in the proposal at all, and it would be included into the lore, this whole thing. But it's been put up as a proposal to the SPS stakeholders, and it's a pretty close one, and it's a pretty intense proposal as far as the back and forth. And I think ultimately that's a good thing. So I want to take a step back. And just think about the whole concept here is that we have our community discussing and debating and ultimately deciding on whether these things should happen or not. So whether or not the result is what any particular person wants it to be, the concept of what's happening is fantastic to me. That's what I at least am here for, and I think most of us are here for. And something that really doesn't exist much at all in most games, even blockchain based games. And I think especially the close ones, the things where there's like real contention, and some people really want it, some people really don't. It also goes to highlight the actual value of SPS as a governance token. People talk about there's so many governance tokens out there in crypto and how they're worthless and nobody cares about governance, but I think this shows opposite, at least for Splinterlands, that people really do care, and there really is significant value to getting these tokens, because you can actually sway these votes that are very close. And so to me, that's super important. And I don't have a real strong opinion either way on the outcome of this particular proposal. I haven't and don't plan to vote or try to sway anyone one way or another. I've chimed in when I think people are saying things that I think are incorrect, because I want people to be viewing the sides correctly. But to me, the real exciting thing isn't whether or not this proposal passes. I mean, I think it will help. I was generally in favor of the concept of it, as far as getting DEC burnt and that type of stuff. But there's good arguments against it also. But to me, just this whole fact that there are these contentious proposals, that the community really has the power to make these decisions, and that there's like value to the SPS token in order to be able to actually sway the outcome of these decisions, is, to me, is really exciting. It's the whole point of the proposal system. And I'm really excited about it. So I encourage everyone to make their opinions known, to really try to think through all the the pros and cons and get more SPS in order to try to get the vote to come out in your favor. I do want to just like let everyone know that it will be okay either way. Nothing. The game is not going to explode, or the economy is not going to fall apart. You know, and I also want to address. I made a comment that I feel like has been taken out of context a little bit. That like the proposal wasn't intended to benefit landholders; it was intended to benefit SPS holders. That doesn't mean that it was intended to hurt landholders. It certainly wasn't. I'm just saying anything like it's the SPS token is the governance token. Their SPS stakeholders are the ones voting on all the proposals. So all the proposals will ultimately pass or fail based on what staked SPS token holders want. So that generally when we put proposals to a group like staked SPS holders, the intention is that the proposal will be something that the staked SPS holders will want. Now, in most cases, they're the same people, right? Most people who have large SPS stake also have a lot of land. But in general, that's all I meant by the proposal. Like people were saying, "Oh, this doesn't benefit landholders or whatever." I was like, "Yeah, that's not really the goal. Wasn't to directly benefit landholders. The goal and the idea was how to benefit SPS. And since most SPS holders are also landholders, and landholders are SPS holders, like if it benefits SPS, it will also benefit landholders, since you get SPS by holding land. If SPS benefits, land benefits. So I think there are indirect benefits, but again, I also agree that there are downsides. It's not the perfect proposal that obviously makes everybody happy. So I'm excited to see how the vote turns out. And like I said, I don't personally have a big preference one way or the other on that. So
for voting in general, I think the community has been pretty good. I see a little bit here and there. My hope is that we respect each other's opinion, because I think everybody that's voting is voting their heart and they're saying, this is what I think is best. And somebody else is voting the opposite position saying, I think this is best. And that doesn't mean that they're Satan. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt the community or screwing you or anybody else. People have different opinions of what's best. And my comment would just be, hey, it's okay if there's disagreement. I feel strongly that this is a good thing, but I understand that somebody else might view it differently and say, no, it's not. And that doesn't mean that they're evil. It doesn't mean that they're hateful. It doesn't mean that they're stupid. It just means that they're a different person with a different set of perspectives and a different value system, or this will impact them differently than it might impact me. And so they get to vote differently. So, I just hope that when people are voting and discussing these things, for the most part, I think it's been pretty good. But just remember that your debate opponent and your voting opponent isn't some evil human. It's, they're just somebody that either feels, senses, or has different incentives than you do, and it doesn't make them evil and bad. Okay, so one of the things that Fighter for Freedom has been very, very vocal that he hates this. It's a land tax, and there's no benefit, and it's just a cost to the landowners. And actually, he put together a kind of a list of a number of things that he thought might be helpful. One, I don't know that I remember all of them, but one, you get the main benefits that potions have listed. Two would be, okay, we change it from something like just a land potion to like a starter kit for land. And within that, it would be something like the first buildings that you get to put together, you don't have to pay the amount of time that would have to go into something. So we'll talk about how time itself becomes a sink in the land expansion. But in this case, the first couple buildings, you wouldn't have to pay for land. And similarly, if there's some generally crappy early game transportation costs, or how you can move assets out of the game and bridges and things like that, that for the people that get these kind of early ones, it would be better. And so as I'm looking at this proposal that's sitting 2 million SPS short, it seems like a bunch of the stakeholders want it, but there's a pretty strong minority that don't. And so they might actually keep it from passing. One thought would be, how could we sweeten the deal so that it doesn't just feel like it's a tax on the landowners, but something like, okay, here's a series of benefits. They're a little bit more thematic than just here's pots. But that to me would be sort of like if this one doesn't pass, maybe that's a way that we take a look at it, because there are a fair number of people that are a yes, but there's also a number of people that are a no. Like what do we do if we want to go kind of make amendments to this proposal, in particular friendly amendments, and how do you see debate going forward when something like this is close but might not have enough votes to pass? And even if it did pass, I think the people that passed it would be kind of excited for this kind of like toolkit idea. It's like your starter pack for land, not just simply potions. What? How do we go from there, or like just any kind of general thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's super simple. Yeah, if you don't like this proposal as it's currently written, that's fine. We vote against it, and if it doesn't pass, then great, and we can always put up another proposal. I mean, not even just us, right? Anyone can. We just submit them as a community member, like anyone else. To do it differently, and so that's great. So if this doesn't pass, that's why I'm also like not like super concerned. It's not like, okay, this doesn't pass and like no one can ever spend DEC again for anything, right? It's like, okay, this particular setup or situation may not pass, and even for people who may be voting for it, because they have to understand that it's not all or nothing. Like if this doesn't pass, that's it, done. There's no opportunity to spend DEC ahead of time. Uh, there can be. So I'm very open, and other people can be open to submitting a different proposal, like Aggie just talked about, where instead of like a potion type thing to get better uh, land, we can pre-sell some type of starter pack per plot or something. Yeah, I'm total like I said, I don't have a horse in this game, this particular thing one way or the other. I don't know if I said that analogy correctly, but
Horse in the race.
horse in the race here. But yeah, that's how you should think about it. It's definitely not one and done here. There can be many more proposals, and I hope that there are.
Okay. Uh, so I think that talks about the things that we might want to bring up for potions, at least to
Yeah.
start. Was there something else you wanted to
No, that's
talk
it.
about?
I'm good.
Okay. So
Should
then,
we get into it?
yeah, going forward, we want to talk about land, and I think at a high point, talking about just some of the key characteristics of land, so that we even know what it is that we're describing. We put out a white paper a while ago, but we haven't really like updated that much. Are some of those things still relevant? Like, how do we think through kind of the rarity of what's in a when you do a land reveal? What are the chances of what are you going to get? Are those things still the same as what we talked about before?
Well, I don't think we talked about specific numbers and chances, and we don't have those. Numbers are not going to be set in stone until the thing is actually released and you are surveying your land. I can talk about high level.
Yeah,
you
just like the categories, right? Like, so we
Yeah.
had rarity, and so you can get a common land, you can get a rare piece of land. There were like different types, right? So we had forests, and we had rivers, and we had deserts. And then I think we also had, whether it's occupied or not, whether there's a negative force on that plot of land. Were there other categories that we've introduced into this? Whether it's natural resources, whether they're magical resources.
Well, no, I mean, pretty much all the stuff that we initially talked about in like the white paper or the initial post. I mean, that's all the same. It was just we're just putting in all the details, which I'm going to talk about. So there's the 4 rarities of land. I expect the rarities would be likely somewhat similar to the rarities, or the percent chances of getting each rarity would be somewhat in the ballpark of the rarities of cards. We plan to have like a minimum guarantee when surveying. So like if in each tract there would be like a minimum of at least 1 legendary plot, right? So no one could get like totally screwed and get a region with no legendaries or anything like that. And then in addition to the rarity, there can be like plots that are just natural regular plots. There can be plots that have magical resources. Those will obviously be a lot less common. And then the rarest will be the occupied plots, which basically have some type of like fiends that are dwelling on the land, and you need to capture their essences, which is going to be a key component in the whole thing. So So basically getting a legendary occupied plot is sort of like the gold foil legendary equivalent in land. Obviously there's the castles and keeps, and as Agrid mentioned, there's 14 different land types. There's like 2 that correspond to each element, including neutral. Um, and those aren't going to be better or worse. They're just going to be different. They're going to have a variety of different resources. So, it won't be better or worse to get a plains or a forest or a lake or a caldera. But they'll just have different things. And so that's kind of how that's the same as what we published before. That's not really changing. What we started to do is put more detail kind of behind how all this is going to work. So and that this detail is writing out a new like real white paper that goes through all this, and it's going to be, I mean, it's like going to be hugely long and go through everything. So we've talked about buildings. Each plot is going to have one building that can be built on it. So you're going to have to choose what kind of building you want to build on your plot from the available buildings. Buildings may have different different pieces that can be upgraded separately. So you might make you might build a farm to harvest grain from a plains plot, for example. But there may be there's the whole like farm building that you can upgrade to different levels, but there may also be different components of it, like a storage component. So like each building will contain a certain amount of storage, and you can upgrade your storage at each plot along with your other building. I mean, that's necessary because if someone only has one plot, they'll need to be able to store resources there to be able to upgrade it and all that stuff. And since I just got onto storage a little bit, that's at a high level how we plan for storage to work. Is you're going to need to store your resources, and it's going to be region based. So you basically, when you go into the land expansion, you're going to be interacting with it one region at a time. So it's also a reason why I've talked about since the beginning, where I don't personally think it will be beneficial to spread your plots out all over the map. Because you'll have to kind of manage them separately. So you'll go into the land expansion. I'm envisioning you'll click on a particular region, and you'll manage all your plots within that region from the same kind of dashboard. And all the storage that you have within that region will be available to you in that region. So if you have, grain stored among 50 different plots in the region, you'll be able to use it anywhere in that region without many or too much transportation expense or anything like that. I mean, and it's also part of the only way how we can kind of make it work for someone who has like 1,000 plots. They can't be moving everything around in little bits. So you have storage. That's a component of all the buildings you have. So, whatever the building produces, if it's a farm that makes grain, you'll be able to store grain there. So you can harvest it, but it'll be limited, right? And you can't just upgrade the storage indefinitely, right? You can just upgrade the storage to the level of the building, and the level of the building is also going to be capped by the level of the keep and the castle in the tract and the region. So those will need to be upgraded as well, and we'll talk about that too. But then if you want more storage, you'll be able to build a storage building. So you'll be able to use a plot and dedicate it specifically to storage. And we're planning on having storage be like by resource type. So like if you want to store grain, you'll need to build a grain storage facility, and that can only store grain or like food resources. And similar with wood and stone and ores and all that stuff. And the reason you would kind of, I think generally, the plan is you'll have enough storage to do things like harvest your resources and upgrade your buildings within your buildings themselves. But the idea is if you want to use your resources and put them in liquidity pools, which is going to be a key component of this whole thing, you'll need to store them. They don't just magically go and fly off into space. If you put 1 million grain into a liquidity pool paired against DEC, you will need to actually store that 1 million grain in a plot that you control or multiple. So you'll need to have storage for that. So that's the whole idea at a high level of this is sort of like people are building businesses that mimic real life businesses in a lot of ways. And a lot of times people might want to focus on certain things. So some people might want to focus on, the production of certain resources, and they really do that. Some people may want to focus on making markets in certain resources, and so they might build a lot of storage facilities, and they might they might store lots of resources and earn trading fees by providing liquidity. And there's going to be all sorts of other benefits and even competitions for people to provide liquidity for all the different resources. And for those who might not know, I feel like, we've talked about this in the past, but the idea is, there's going to be lots of different resources. I think we're looking at somewhere around like 30 to 40 different resources that are part of this. And for anyone who's thinking, oh my gosh, that's a million things like that, but that's the whole point. That's what this game is. It's a resource management game. So if it was a resource management game with like 5 resources, that would kind of suck, in my opinion. So the point is, there's going to be a lot of resources. They're all going to have different uses, and you're not going to be able to produce all of them, or not efficiently, right? So it might be much more efficient for you if you have a very foresty region to really like focus on, I'm going to produce wood and refine wood and provide liquidity and do all this stuff. And then when you need other resources to upgrade your buildings, you use the markets and you use the liquidity pools. So players will provide liquidity of all the resources paired against dark energy crystals, and then anyone can swap using those liquidity pools. So if I want to swap a stone for grain, I can just, swap it, just like using Pancake Swap or Tribal Decks on Hive Engine. You just, put in the amount of stone you wanna sell, and behind the scenes it'll sell the stone for DEC, and then it'll use the DEC to buy the grain, and then you get the grain out the other end in a single transaction. So it'll be very seamless and easy for users. But the point is, there's, it's kind of designed so there's going to be a ton of volume. Like, people are not going to produce all the resources they need themselves. Even probably Neil McSpadden will not produce all the resources he needs. So you're going to have
Getting
to
called out, bro.
getting called out. That's what happens when you have 2 castles. So there's, people are going to be needing to be trading on the market a significant amount, and that means the people who provide liquidity are going to be earning a good amount from all the trading fees that happen. So and one of the things I really want to harp on is how much DEC is going to be required in this. So we talked about, it's going to need to be paired against all these resources and the liquidity pools. So like, this is going to be 30 to 40 resources. They're all going to have liquidity pools. It's all going to need to be paired against DEC. So you can't just take your stone and just throw it all in a liquidity pool by itself. You're going to need DEC to pair with it. So that's going to be a huge. It's not exactly staking. It's not locked up or anything. You can take it out at any time, but it's basically locked up. It's not usable for anything else for as long as people have it in the liquidity pools. So that's going to be a huge like area of DEC just being locked up into something for as long as people provide liquidity. And again, we plan to provide there's going to be significant bonuses and benefits to providing liquidity for these different resources. But then also, I want to talk about how production happens on the land. We talked about initially that the whole idea of land is that the old cards are used to produce the new cards. So in these buildings, you don't just build a farm and grain pops out. You're going to actually need to put your cards, your monster and summoner cards, to work on the land. And every single plot with every single building will need cards in order to be productive. We're thinking currently it'll be about 5 cards per plot. Everything. We should qualify this as like everything is subject to change at this point. So this is what we're currently thinking, currently planning. But as we go through everything, it could potentially change. But at the moment, we're thinking 5 cards, up to 5 cards per plot. And the thinking is that the production is going to be proportional to the BCX of the cards. So a max level common Chaos Legion card would be 400 times as productive on a plot of land as a level 1 common or a 1 BCX common Chaos Legion card of the same foil and everything. And then so one of the goals is to really encourage combining of cards. Like, people who want to maximize the output of their land are going to want max level cards on their land. And then obviously the earlier edition cards, the alpha cards, are going to be significantly more productive than the Chaos Legion cards or the newer cards. And we want to tread a fine line where we want to highly encourage people to use old cards. We want the older cards to be like very, very valuable, and you want to use them on land. But also, there's literally not enough of them to be all the workers on the land. There's not even close to enough. I don't even think a quarter of all the worker spots on land could be taken by like alpha and beta and orb cards like all together. So the newer cards will still be very valuable at the higher levels, working on land. And that's the goal. One of the things, obviously when we talk about this stuff internally, we let everyone know, like, that they should never be trading. If we find anyone in the company trading on any of this stuff that they learn, before it's made public, obviously that would be a big issue and, probably a fireable offense. Um, and, obviously myself and Aggro, we follow that same thing. But like, I was kind of waiting for this call where we're telling everybody about these things to go. I'm going to be buying a lot of DEC personally, and I plan to buy a lot of the reward cards that are going to be stopping print tomorrow. Because you can get like max level versions of those like common reward cards for like $4, or even the other ones, they're like super cheap. And I'm like, I have a region of land, I might need like 5,000 max level cards to work on them. So now that it's public information, everyone can front run me if they want on that. I probably won't get to it for a while anyway, but like, I 100% plan to do that as someone who wants to sort of heavily invest in my land production. And that's the goal of all this, right? Is to make all the cards in the game, combining them, um, and using them, so they're not just sitting in the collection collecting dust. And from the DEC side, for anyone who follows the lore, they might realize that like these cards are not really, they're not like physical beings. When you fight a battle in an arena, there aren't like physical lords of darkness that like travel to the arena by train or something. Um, they're like these manifestations. I'm probably doing it horrible justice, and maybe Nate can correct me later. But they're like ephemeral things that like fight and they battle. But in order to work on the land, they're going to be harvesting actual grain and actual chopping down trees and mining ores and all this stuff. So you're going to need to stake DEC uh, within your land plots in order to have your cards be able to like come to life and work on the land. So you're not going to need to spend DEC, but you're going to need to stake it. You're going to need to lock it up while while your cards are working on the land in order for them to be productive. And it's going, between just staking the DEC for the cards to work, and it'll probably be somewhat proportional to, the burn value or the power of the card, right? So if like you have a bunch of level 1 cards on land, you won't need as much DEC, but they're not going to produce as much. But if you have a bunch of alpha gold foil legendaries, you're going to have a super productive plot of land. But you're also going to need to stake a lot of BCX again, so a lot of DEC. Sorry. So again, you don't need to spend it. You're not losing anything, but you're going to need to put up a lot in order to make your land work. And for anyone, I can sense there's some people that, the same with the current proposal, are like, well, we have land. They should just produce resources, right? I shouldn't have to like get more DEC and get more stuff and put more, money into this thing. But that's not really how this works. I mean, again, I look at it like similar to a real life business in a lot of ways, where you don't just have an empty plot of land and then all of a sudden resources start getting produced. You have to put a lot of capital investment, capital expenditure up front. And it's a long-term thing, right? You put this capital expense up front to build out your buildings and your resources and your workers and all this stuff. And over time, potentially years, you build a very profitable business, right? That's producing a lot more than you put in initially, but it takes a while. And so the people who just like, they have land and they throw some cards on it and a little bit of DEC, they're not going to get much value out of their land. But the people who really want to put up and make this capital expenditure up front, and really build out their business for the future, they're going to be the ones that are going to be reaping the rewards down the road. They're going to be the ones that are producing the majority of the item and spell cards. They're going to be the ones that are getting all these cool benefits that are going to come, because they put this upfront capital in. They put all this DEC in, and the total amount of DEC that's going to be needed for all this stuff. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers of everything, but like generally it's going to far exceed the amount of DEC that's currently in circulation. I mean, we're talking tens of billions of DEC easily, for people kind of trying to max out their land production. And for anyone who's like, oh my gosh, where's this DEC going to come from? It's going to come from burning SPS, right? That's the whole point. There's an unlimited supply of DEC. You're just going to have to burn SPS for it. And my expectation is that for land, people are going to be burning SPS like lunatics, because you won't be able to get DEC anymore below the intended value of 1,000 per dollar. My feeling, and again, why I plan to buy a lot of DEC, shortly after this stuff is now public, is because I just think this type of discount we see is going to be unheard of. And really what people are going to be trying to do is just see how cheaply they can get SPS, which may not be possible either, just to burn it as fast as possible to get their DEC to increase the value of their land and the production of their land. So that leads me into also like why you want to increase, your land production, why you want to put all this capital expense up front, and do all these things. So obviously there's items and spell cards, right? So that's like the biggest, most obvious thing. You're again building a business, and the product that your business is going to make ultimately is going to be these cards that people who play Splinterlands, everyone who plays Splinterlands, most of them probably won't have land, will need to get. So it's just like, how Splinterlands, the company, sells packs of cards, and there's significant demand for those packs. You landholders will now be able to build these businesses to sell these new cards, just like we sell packs to players. So again, like, you can just do the bare minimum and, have your land up and put whatever cards you have around and a little bit of DEC. But you just will be way behind the people who really put up, go out in the market and get a bunch of DEC, who get a bunch of cards, especially when they're cheap and their land production is like maxed out. They're going to be the ones who are like cornering the market in item and spell production down the road. But that being said, item and spell production is going to be a while out. I mean, that's another huge change and update to the entire Splinterlands game. So we're talking a long time for that, even after the initial, the first release of land where you can build the buildings and harvest the resources. So the question is, and this is the question we've worked through when designing it, is like, well, okay, is everyone just going to be getting like all these resources and they're just going to be sitting around and hoarding them until, items and spells are released, or what are you going to do? So we have a whole bunch of other, benefits that you can get and things you can use to spend your resources on in the meantime until the items and spells are ready. And you'll still be able to do the other things once the items and spells are ready, and that they'll just be another thing that you can use the resources for that should make them hopefully even more valuable. So one of the things is, one of the types of buildings you'll be able to build that we didn't talk about is an arena. And currently, everyone knows that if you have land, you just get SPS. It magically appears, and you can claim it, and you get staked SPS. But that's just a short-term thing that was voted on by the SPS token holders until the land expansion is out. So once the land expansion is released, and you can actually build buildings and work on your land, there'll be a different method of earning SPS, and the method is by building arenas. So if you build an arena, basically all the ranked battles in the game are going to start taking place in arenas, and taking place in arenas that people build. And if you build, you start with a level 1 arena, you'll get a certain amount of like bronze level battles, ranked battles that take place in your arena. And you, the landowner, will start to earn reward shares from the battles that take place in your arena. So if like a bronze level battle is in your arena, the winner of that gets 1,000 reward shares. You will also earn like a copy of those reward shares as the landholder where the arena exists. And then the land SPS pool will be distributed out to people who have arenas based on the amount of reward shares that they've earned through the battles that take place there. And then you can level up the arenas by spending these resources. And as you level them up, you'll get, silver, gold, up to champion battles, and you can get more battles per day that take place in your arena. You'll get more reward shares, and you'll get more of the SPS on the land. So that's one of the ways that people will be able to use resources to actually gain value before items and spells are live. There's also going to be we know there's like titles that go after your name, like the Praetorian or the Gambler or whatever, and those are, we haven't still figured out the details of how exactly those are going to benefit the land, but they definitely are. That's in the white paper, and it's stubbed out. for the boosts and benefits that that's going to give. But land is also going to open up prefix titles. So not only could you be Yabat Mat the Praetorian, you could be Lord Yabat Mat the Praetorian, Baron Yabat Mat, Duke Aggroed, all the way up to Emperor. And you'll basically, we're planning on having leaderboards for the land, so you'll be able to see which regions produce the most of what resources, which players produce the most, who has the most liquidity in certain resources, all these different things, and a bunch of different things that you can do can help you earn these prefix titles. It might just be like everyone who owns a certain number of plots is like a lord or a lady, and you'll be able to choose the masculine or feminine of the titles. And so even before the items and spells come out, there's going to be a bunch of competition between people to produce the most, to provide the most liquidity, and to do certain different like goals and objectives that can earn them these titles. And so one of the biggest goals and objectives is what I kind of teased in my message and official updates earlier, is the secret of Praetoria. So we're planning.
Dun, dun, dun.
There is a big secret in Praetoria that has been covered up for years by the Wizards Council or whoever our lore team decides how they make it. And part of participating in land is you can work together to unlock the secret. And the secret is something that's going to be directly benefiting everyone who participates in its unlocking, and not just within land, but within the rest of the Splinterlands game itself. So the idea is,
and will it take resources in DEC to unlock?
No, it'll be totally free, and everyone just gets it because they're nice people, which they are. But that's not how it works. So the idea is that it's actually going to be a competition between the territories. So there's 7 different territories. You can see them on the map. And I sort of envision it sort of like the movie Contact. If you've seen the movie Contact, basically like aliens send down these instructions to build something, and no one really knows what it is or what it does. But there's sort of this like big competition to build it and complete it. So I sort of think like it's like that. Like everyone's going and settling on Praetoria. They kind of discover that there's something going on, and there's these like blueprints of something they can start building, and they don't exactly know what it does. And each of the 7 territories can work together basically to put in resources, sort of like a guild, right? Everyone can put in resources to try to build this thing. And there's going to be phases of it, right? So it won't just be like, because it's going to take a long time. It's not like a month after land is released it's going to be done and unlocked. It's this is going to be like probably a multi-year thing that's planned to be done initially sometime around when items and spells are out, because it's going to affect that also. But so there'll be multiple phases. People in each region can contribute resources, and the thinking was that the people who contribute the most resources in each phase, when a phase is completed, the person who completes the most will be the king of that region. So they'll be king whoever in the game. They'll earn that title, and there'll be benefits coming along with that. And then the next however many people might be the prince or something, or princess or queen. But everyone who participates, even if you have one plot, if you participate, eventually, once you have completed the full thing, everyone will benefit. There will be an airdrop of sorts that related to the secret that's been unlocked. And so even if you're like, I have no chance of being a prince or a king, like, I have 2 plots, I'm never going to get close, you can still benefit ultimately down the road if you participate in this. And even though it's a competition, everyone will be able to eventually unlock it. My thinking currently is that the like first territory to unlock it will get like a certain period of time where they get a head start. So they unlock it, and then the next one, the next territory, even if they put in all the resources necessary, it might still take a few months before they're able to unlock it. So the first one that completes it, like locks in a bonus for a certain period of time. And so that's one of the ways where, even while people are waiting for items and spells to be released, it's not, this is a thing where they can use their resources that will significantly benefit them down the road. And then we're also planning on having a building, like some sort of research center, but the actual name and lore of it will be decided by our lore team, creative team. that you'll need to actually, like, have cards in a building on a plot of land working to uncover the secrets. It's not just like known out of the gate how to build this thing. Maybe the first phase, is known how to be built, but in order to unlock the next phases, people in who have land within that territory, some of them might opt to build this research center type building and put cards in it, in order to generate research that goes into the building, and that will also give them a contribution points to the end goal, and that they'll benefit from, when it's done. So I don't know, all this stuff, I mean, that we're coming up with is stuff that we personally think is fun and interesting and makes this whole land expansion, more exciting than just how many resources can I produce and then what do I sell them at? What's my ROI every day? It's really about, like, there's going to be a whole bunch of different building options. There's going to be a bunch of different ways to kind of like focus and decide what like niche your business wants to fulfill. And then you can decide, do you want to just sell your resources, or do you want to potentially contribute to this thing that you don't know what it is. And I'm putting it out there. You guys don't know what it is. So you will have to trust us that it's going to be as cool as we make it sound. Um, and if you decide to participate or not. But that's kind of the fun of this game, right? It's not just build some buildings, make some resources, sell them, check my profit. It's really deciding what to do, managing it, getting the cards, and the market mechanics. Is DEC cheap? Can I burn SPS? Are there certain cards that I can get real cheap and get working on land? Are there a bunch of rusty androids that no one wants to play with that I can pick up, or whatever it is? That whole the economics part, like, this is, I always say, like, Splinterlands is a lot more than just battling with cards. The economy is also a big part of the game. But here it's like the entire game, like the resources, the liquidity pools, all this stuff, is what makes this fun. And trying to earn the titles and all these things, get on the top of the leaderboards, is what we're the goal. We want to make it like super fun and interesting. I'm trying to scroll through the big document and see what
What about we've talked a little bit about moving your assets to like external exchanges. So is that something that you've been thinking about? How might that work? If you don't just want to trade things in game, but want it on tribal decks and Hive Engine, or you want to bring it to, maybe we have this stuff working on Sushi Swap or Pancake Swap. What are there any kind of funky rules around external markets for all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about funky rules, but we haven't talked about really about like resource transportation and use. So I talked about like things will be managed within a region. So if you have everything within a region, you can kind of use it all easily and cheaply within that region. But you will also be able to transport resources between regions. And so this is sort of where the castles and keeps come into play a little bit. So like castles are buildings, like all the other buildings, they can be upgraded. They're also going to have a lot of different sub buildings, the castles and keeps, and so the players within the region can decide, which sub buildings of the castles and keeps they want to upgrade, and each one will give different benefits. So there'll be one focused on transportation and transportation costs. So if you're moving a lot of resources between regions, and it won't matter where the regions are currently on the map. They could be on opposite sides of the map, or they could be right next to each other, but there will be certain fees for moving those resources between different regions, and those will be determined based on the level of the keeps and castles that are involved, and the specific like sub buildings within them. And there'll be costs and there'll be time for doing that. So and a part of all the costs also will just be burning DEC. So whether it's liquidity pools, like if I swap two assets in a liquidity pool, some of the fees will go to the liquidity providers, some of the fees will go to like castle and keep owners, but some of the fees will also be burned. So if I put in a bunch of grain into a liquidity pool, a certain amount of that grain it'll buy DEC, but then a certain amount of that DEC will just be burned as the fee. And the rest that's left will go to buy the other resource that the player is swapping for. So same with transportation. A certain amount of the fees, like you're going to lose a certain amount of grain in transportation if you send it from region A to region B. Part of that will go to castle and keep owners. Part of it will go to just burning. It'll be just sold for DEC, and the DEC will be burned. So that's another way. Like DEC is just going to be constantly burned when all this stuff happens. And then sending it to something like Hive Engine is similar to just sending it to another region, but you're basically like putting it on a ship and sending it out of Praetoria off to Hive Engine land somehow. And so that will probably have its own fees, right? So we're going to set it up in such a way, like we don't want that to be a way to like get around other restrictions. So it's like, oh, I don't want to pay transportation fees from region A to region B, so I'm just going to send everything to Hive Engine and then send it back to another account in a different region. You're not going to save on fees. It might even cost more to do that than it would just transporting it within the game, which might even be more than just selling it on the market, or we're going to have to design all that out. But that's how that's all going to work, and you may be able again to upgrade a building within your castle in your region to have lower fees for sending your resources out to Hive Engine or potentially other chains. And as far as castles and keeps are concerned, we haven't talked about that too much. Obviously, there's going to be an owner, someone who owns the plot on which the castle and keep exist. But we want to avoid a situation where, for whatever reason, the owner of the castle or keep where your land is like MIA or not participating, like, and that causes a problem somehow. So the idea is like castle and keep owners can basically just sit back and collect fees, and they don't need to do anything with their castles and keeps. And that's kind of the benefit and why castles and keeps are valuable and good land plots to have. You just collect the benefits of it. But everyone within the region or within the tract can contribute to leveling up the castle or the keep. So even if the owner is totally MIA, it doesn't matter. Everyone in the region can put resources toward upgrading the building, which will limit the level of all the buildings that you can build on your plot. So if your castle is only level 3, then your keeps can only be level 3 and your buildings can only be level 3. And so the idea is everyone can contribute, and you can decide like, hey, I do a lot of transportation of resources, so I'm going to just upgrade the castle building in my region, or and then everyone will also, I mentioned a bunch of fees going to castle and keep owners, but a portion will also go to everyone who contributes to upgrading the castle or keep, proportionally to how much they've contributed. So if you're the one in your region, if you're in a region with a bunch of other people and you just are putting all the resources into upgrading the castle and keep, and everyone else is benefiting, right, because you've upgraded the things and spent the resources, you're also going to benefit from that. So all the portions of the fees that go to contributors are going to mostly go to you if you've contributed everything. Which is similar to like the secret, we talked about before, unlocking. Like the more you contribute, the more you will directly benefit from all these fees and things that go to that. So, for everything that happens, the fees are going to be split up in a whole bunch of different ways. A certain percentage is going to go to DEC to be burned. A certain percentage may go to the castle and keep owners. Certain percentages go to the castle and keep contributors. A certain percentage in the case of swaps go to liquidity providers. So there's going to be like a lot of breakdowns. There's going to be a lot of things that affect all those amounts and who gets what. And that's, again, going to be part of the whole game of this is trying to maximize your earnings and figure out what you should contribute and upgrade when and what you should do.
So there's a lot of specifics missing. So this is super high level and it's great. And it's not even like super high level. It's actually getting somewhat detailed, but all the numbers are missing. When do you suspect that the players will be able to like know just how much my grain will produce if it's level 1, if it's the different rarity, if it's, depending on the different monsters working on it? Like when do you think the detailed mechanics get released? Is that, this month? Is it this year? Is it next year?
Well, the first thing is to release all this high level stuff that I've been talking about. So again, I've been working on. We have this whole huge document with like all this stuff. It goes into a lot more than even I've even just talked about just now. So we're going to release that first. So that talks about how everything works without getting into numbers. The next piece, and that we hope to have ready, hopefully within the next month or two, roughly. And then we get into high level numbers. So we already have a lot of high level numbers. Which are things like how much higher production is an alpha card than a Chaos Legion card, or a legendary card than a common card, or a gold card than another card. How much more production is a legendary plot than a common plot, or the other rarities. All that type of thing. So players will be able to understand, what they need. How much DEC, roughly you're going to need for different things, different level cards and what they produce. So those are like the first high level numbers. I don't have a time frame, but that's like kind of next after we figure out all the details of how the system works. We put down the high level numbers, and then we get into the very detailed numbers, like how much of what resource does it take to upgrade your farm from level 3 to level 4. And that stuff, I mean, once that's done, I mean, that's going to be basically when the whole thing is pretty much ready for release. How much resources do you need and research to finish the first level of the secret project? What are the exact fees for liquidity or liquidity pool transactions? So those are kind of the 3 phases I think of for like my design work. I don't exactly have time frames on them, but we're going to get the information out to everyone as soon as we can, with the caveat always that, like, if we put this stuff out and then we're building it and we find that something doesn't work well, it's going to be changed, right? So we're going to publish the information as soon as we think we have something that's like pretty solid, but it doesn't mean it's 100% ever. And I, as a player, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want us to be like locked into something if it's not ultimately the right thing. Like we want to make it as good as we can, and there are a lot of things we're going to learn as we get closer and we actually like start testing this in test environments and see what works and what doesn't. We're going to have to tweak things. I also, one of the things I also want to talk about was the resources. I don't know if I put that on the list. You want me to spend a few minutes going through the resources?
Sure, let's hit
this
it.
This is something I haven't actually even discussed with the team internally.
We also have
yet.
to talk about Rooney, so don't forget.
Oh yeah, Rooney. Yes, of course.
So
There's too much stuff here to even, like I said, I don't know if we can fit all this in. But we mentioned there's natural resources, there's magical resources, and there's these essences that you get from the occupied plots. But it's not just, there's going to be a bunch of different of these types of resources, and then there's also going to be refined resources. So you don't just harvest grain and then that's it. You're gonna need to harvest grain, and my plan is that you'll actually combine the grain with the essences in some type of like mill. And you might need wood to burn, right, to do this to create these different type of foods. And if you get like earth element essences and you combine those with the grain, you infuse the grain, you might create food that is for earth element cards. So that's the food you'll need for your cards to work on your land. They're going to need some type of, and I don't know if it'll be actually food. Like you don't imagine like the Lord of Darkness sitting down with his lunch pail, which is what I give credit to Nate for saying in one of our meetings. But it's some kind of sustenance for them that they need, whether it's energy or food or something else the creative team comes up with. But you're going to need the grain plus these essences to create that, and you're going to need that for your workers to be able to work and produce things. There's going to be wood that comes from the forests and the swamps and those type of terrain. And the wood is, you might need to use a sawmill and turn it into planks, right, to build buildings. They're mostly going to need wood. Or you're also going to need the wood to, like I said, cook the food. You're going to need the wood to smelt the ores. You're going to need the wood to kind of like use in all these other things. So then there's stone, which is another type of resource. And again, in order to use the stone, different types of buildings that are associated with different elements are going to need different types of stones. And you'll be able to combine the stones with the magical resources. The magical resources, certain plots will have magical resources, like sparkstone for fire, or vertulium for life. So you infuse the stone with these magical resources, and you get different kinds of stone, like quartz, or onyx, or obsidian, or granite, etc. We have a whole list that correspond to the different elements, and certain buildings will take different types of stones. So, like dragon affiliated buildings might take obsidian, whereas others, water buildings might take sandstone or whatever. And then the last thing is the last natural resource is going to be ores. So there's going to be like metal ores. So certain types of terrain will have ore. You can build you build a mine, and then the mine is a little different in that as you level it up, you'll be able to basically like mine deeper and get more rare metals. So you might start by only being able to mine iron, but as you level up your mine, you might start getting a little aluminum, and then copper and titanium, and perhaps like mithril or something. We haven't 100% decided on the exact ores that are going to be available. So you level up and you have higher chances of getting the more rare resources. And then again, you're going to need to turn the ores into like metal bars, using wood within a foundry building. And ultimately, to upgrade all the different buildings and do all the things that you want to do, you're going to need some wood planks. You're going to need the appropriate type of stone. You're going to need the appropriate type of metal bars. And you're going to need the appropriate type of food or like the energy or essence for your workers, for your worker cards. So that's like a high level of how we see the resources working and interacting with each other, in interesting ways to kind of build out this whole system.
Rooney, what's a Rooney do?
Yeah, Rooney, what's that again? Is that a thing? No, I'm just kidding. Of course. So Rooney, Rooney is a very special card in the game already. It's going to be special within the land expansion as well. We're also planning on having Rooney be featured in things like guild alliances, which we talked about before. So there's going to be, as we mentioned in the past, there's going to be like lots of different uses for having lots of different Rooney. So it's not just going to be about, hey, do I have the best Rooney with like the pickle and all these other things? Like there's also going to be like, hey, I need 10 Rooney for different things. So the high level plan right now, and again, this all still like could change, is that Rooney is going to be a special type of worker that can go on your plots. So I'm thinking a plot could have a maximum of 1 Rooney, so you can't have like 5 Rooney on a plot, and it'll give like a significant bonuses. In similar ways, like a totem. We haven't talked about totems. Another thing I can get to, but like a Rooney would also be another way where you can get like an extra benefit on your plot. And again, there's only like 3,500 Rooney, so it wouldn't even, I don't know like what percent of that is of the total land, but it's like maybe 2% of plots or something would even be able to have a Rooney, assuming they were all used on land. So it'll be a relatively rare thing. But you'll want, and it won't matter like if you have the most rare Rooney with 3 legendary parts or like the most common floor price Rooney off the market. Rooney is another thing I was considering maybe picking up a few more of after all this, even though I do have a ton. But you'll be able to use it on a land as one of your workers, but it'll get significant benefits compared to the traditional worker. So if possible, you're going to want Rooney, especially on your legendary plots. So
Yeah,
that's how we're planning on Rooney factoring in.
I'd like to see something that's unique to like the higher level castles and keeps too. So whether that's a specific Rooney or maybe we come up with a separate like Rooney style thing like PFP project. Maybe this time we put it on Polygon or somewhere else, but now it's a way that you can, you need it if you want to operate a high level castle or keep. You have to go get something like that. That would be on my brain too. That way we can introduce this PFP concept to other blockchains and other ecosystems and get, consistent marketing from those marketplaces over there too.
Yeah, we could do that. And like, as we kind of mentioned this early on in Rooney, but like if we do any other PFP projects, Rooney will be like a whitelist spot or a way or a discount or a way to get access to it like earlier before other people. So it's not going to be like, oh, we're just throwing out new, like we already have Rooney and now we're throwing out a whole bunch of new stuff and sort of diluting the value of it. It'll be like Rooney will be your ticket to getting those and being able to use them in the different things that they're used for.
So the only thing I haven't heard, are we planning on DEC staking? If there's this much DEC that you're going to need, not everybody's going to have that handy. Could you see DEC staking be a thing?
Well, I see you have to stake DEC either in the liquidity pools.
I'm sorry,
or on your lands.
delegation. I mean delegation. Sorry, I don't just mean staking.
Well, I don't see, since there isn't DEC staking, there isn't a need for DEC delegation. Right, DEC is not so the whole reason for like staking and delegation is for a token that that you lock up and that you hope appreciates in value. right? So DEC isn't that. So there's no like value to just like holding a bunch of DEC for a long time. You either you need it and you use it, or you sell it. Like the whole idea is that DEC doesn't go up in value, right? It
No,
can't.
no,
So
no. But
there's
you would rent it to somebody else. Somebody else, like, don't you have to? Or when we put a monster on land, didn't you say that there is a DEC requirement? Is that burnt
right.
or is that
No,
staked?
it's staked. It's like, yeah, it's
Right. So if
but you're
there's,
using it, so you're not going to delegate it out because
well, no,
you
I
have it.
just imagine that if somebody wants to be doing this but doesn't have enough cash on hand, that they could be renting DEC from somebody else to stake into their plots.
I don't see that really makes sense here. It makes sense for SPS, but why would someone?
Because
I
they don't have enough cash. But that's it. Look,
yeah,
we can talk
just
about that
really
later.
don't think that one makes sense personally. I think it makes sense for an appreciating token like SPS where you want to hold the token for the appreciation, and you want to be able to like get value out of it because it can be used for things. You might not be using it for you might just be holding it, right? You might not need it for entering tournaments or whatever it can do, or governance things. So you let other people use it for that purpose. But since DEC is a non-appreciating asset, I don't see that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it more like a loan. I don't think it's going to appreciate. Like if investigator needs to, he's on his level 10 building and it's just a crap ton of money. That you don't spend it, you stake it. But if you just don't have enough cash to do that, I could see.
Yeah, I mean, I
a
guess we could
rental
make it
option.
so you could stake. It'd be easy to like let people stake DEC on other people's plots,
Yeah, that.
which would cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, that's easy. I think, yeah, that's different in my mind, I guess, than staking and delegation. But like, yeah, it doesn't need to be you that puts your DEC on your plots. It could be someone else, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
have
yeah.
a monetary arrangement for that.
Perfect.
I,
That
And
makes
then
I
sense.
think you guys have a deep hatred for the UX UI design team.
wait, Nate, I want to.
Nate, for as difficult a task as I'm giving you, I assure you that the task of actually like coming up with all the numbers for this stuff to make sure it all works out and that resources are well balanced and not overly abundant is at least equally as difficult a task. So we're not trying to make anything difficult for everyone. We're trying to design the like most fun game that we can, and then throwing it out to the team to figure it out.
Yeah, no, for sure.
One more. The only thing one class I haven't seen is gladiators. Do you see gladiators fitting into land, or is that simply a battle system thing?
So that I'm not sure about yet. I mean, so there's gladiators and there's going to be the soulbound reward cards, and the question is, can those be used as workers on land or not? My guess is that that's not going to like be as big a deal because not that many people have that many high level gladiator cards anyway because they're super hard to get, and they want to mostly use them in the brawls. So it would probably be better to just get a max level reward card or something. But I'll have to see. That's one I haven't really thought through yet or discussed with the team yet. But we do
I think,
generally want to
yeah,
make uses for gladiator cards.
I think that you mentioned an idea earlier that, well, first of all, I think you're totally right. Like, there's not enough gladiator cards out there to warrant, like, I need an extra use for this thing. Like everyone's having trouble just combining them to level them up as is, without giving them more utility. But you did have an idea earlier, Matt, about the building arenas. You would think that if there's a good spot for gladiators,
There you go.
if there's, that would be it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe the gladiators, maybe the arena. You need gladiator cards only that can work on your arena, right? And the better
Problem
gladiator cards,
solved. I
the
like it.
more R shares you capture from the battles and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff. I have those as like there's at the bottom of the document. There's like a bunch of like unfinished questions. There's all sorts of things. I mean, another thing where I was thinking, and I have a section in there, is like being able to repurpose buildings. So I don't want it to be like, oh, you spent, it comes out. Obviously, there's always going to be incomplete information. You spend all this time making all these things and going on, down one path, and you find out forestry isn't for you. for whatever reason down the road. And so that there'll be paths to like repurpose buildings, and because we want people to like adjust to economic conditions. We don't want it to be like simple and instant. You click a button and boom, your sawmill changes into a mine. But there should be methods that are easier than like knocking down your whole building and starting from scratch. For people to take advantage of like market imbalances. If all of a sudden there's a big shortage of stone for some reason, like people can get in a reasonable amount of time and cost, like start repurposing buildings over to quarries and kind of fill that void. And that's how you kind of keep the economy, in balance. The whole goal of this is not to like create numbers that are perfect, but just to create a system that will balance itself out. So however much wood is being produced is fine. The price will just adjust, and the number of sawmills and logging, yards or whatever we call them, lumber yards, will be built more or built less to like compensate. And the whole economy, we're very into like laissez-faire economy here. We're just going to put it out and let it run, and not be like a Federal Reserve trying to pull strings in this.
The
Nate,
markets.
Yeah.
so we've had, there's a lot that Matt has unpacked here. It's not entirely new, but there's certainly the breadth of what we're covering is larger than what I think the initial white paper even suggested. How are you prepared for this? Are you feeling like, yeah, bro, I got this? Are you like deer in headlights? Have we started on land? Like where like how far along do you think the creative process and the creative team is, in terms of delivering this vision?
I would say that it is both terrifying and exciting at the same time. It's like the crypto industry, right? Like being on a roller coaster ride. And what's funny is you guys all watched Matt just go full blown beautiful mind on this town hall. Like he's just just unleashing all this stuff. And in the years of working with him, I think we had this conversation not that long ago in the last land discussion. I'm like, I don't even know who you are, Matt. Like, what's going on? I spent years like being the one vomiting ideas all over the place, and him saying, no. Let's be practical here. Let's do what's easy to implement. And I feel like Matt now has an opportunity to really just unleash. Like, I don't think anyone has really seen, like they think they've seen Matt unleashed. No, you haven't. Like I could see it happening before my eyes in some of these meetings. Like Matt is just going full blown beast mode. And if you thought you saw him beast mode before, you haven't seen anything yet. I'm sure this town hall has given you guys just a taste.
Well, what's happened, Nate. One of the big things is until the last year or so, like I had to build most of the stuff myself. So I was like, or me and Cryptomancer and Melon Man, and that was kind of it, along with everything else. So I was like, well, I'm gonna not come up with very cool ideas and tell Nate to like keep a lid on it, because I'm not gonna be able to do it. But now we have like such a great team of people like pumping out stuff, that like I'm just like gonna let it go and just go full and as ambitious as we can possibly get. And we may have to rein some of the things in. We like to do things in phases. Maybe all of this stuff won't be out on the first phase, but I want to just I try to think of it now, which is different than I ever had in the past. Just totally like unrestrained by the actual amount of development and creative work it'll take to implement it, and just try to design the best system. And then I'll work with all, because you guys have like completely blown me away over the years with what you can produce. I mean, even from day one, when Melon Man actually made the like actual battles and what you see on the screen, like I was envisioning something that was like way worse and crappier than that, because it was what I could actually do in the time frame. But like when I unleash these creative people that we have in house and developers on things, they make things even better than I would imagine them. So I'm glad you've noticed the change, because it's been clear to me that like once I'm not like super worried about how the hell am I going to build all this, and I'm like, we have a team of really good people and they're going to figure it out. It really lets the creativity go in a way it's never before.
And I'm very proud of the creative team and what they've been able to do. So I'm glad that you trust us to bring this vision to life. I would say that aggro, the biggest challenge is going to be just the UX of it all, figuring it out, like to turn it from just ideas Like we see the same thing with the proposal system and the DAO and its Investi, and everyone has all these ideas. And same thing in the internal, same thing outwardly. There's all these amazing ideas, and like, how do we make it make sense and make it intuitive? And how do we make it user friendly? And apply the 3 principles I always do, which is it fun? Does it add utility? And does it bring value? So so trying to balance all those things, that's the challenge. But I think we're up for it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, every day I get to come to work and see all the cool stuff that creative is putting together to support kind of what Matt is describing and everything else that we're doing as a company. So it's exciting to see.
It's fun. It's fun to do too. Like I got COVID recently after the holidays, like everybody, and like I took the entire weekend where I was like now all of a sudden unencumbered from any family duties, and I spent like almost the entire weekend working on this stuff that I just talked to you about. This was a few weeks ago, but I was like, it was like one of the most fun weekends I've had, which may be sad in a way, but it's also, for me, like, I don't know, just like imagining this stuff. And I take it and I just start thinking through, okay, I start with, okay, I have a region and I go in on day 1 and what do I do? Right. I start putting my cards in. I need DEC, I need to start making like food. And how do I get my level 1 buildings where I think, okay, I have 1 plot or I have 3 plots or 5. What do I do? Is that different? Does that work? How do I manage the resources if I have 1 plot versus 1,000 plots, or I have stuff all over the map? And just like kind of like going through like step by step of the process of how it would actually work was like pretty fun and interesting.
No, absolutely. And I like where your head's at, where, hey, look, it's going to take us so long to get all these pieces in place. What can we kind of do sooner rather than later to get people more involved in land, even if it's not the finished super product? Like, what could there be that people can have fun doing in the meantime? And I think that, I don't know, there's probably lots we can do.
Anything you want to show in the current kind of brain dump that we've just had? Is it all theoretical and in Matt's head, or is this stuff that we're actually working on and can kind of show any pieces of this?
Yeah. What's that, Ron?
Yeah,
oh, no.
Oh.
Whatever. Sorry, for those of you, I'm talking to Ron. You can't hear him.
Nate,
I don't know.
Nate hears voices in his head.
Nate, do you have images that you would like to share that you think you could share?
Sure.
All right. So let's
I
go
know
to
we're running out
creative.
of time.
Let's go to creative corner. Actually, let's give Matt one shot here. Matt, is there anything else kind of high level you'd like to add about just land or how we're doing things these days?
I just want to reiterate the amount of DEC and like higher level cards that you're going to need. Like, we don't have exact numbers, but like I said, tens of billions of DEC in total are definitely going to be like used. Some spent, the majority just like kind of locked up in land. And for those who are like, where's that going to come from? It's going to come from burning SPS. That's the whole idea of this whole system. So no one should be surprised and say, oh, I didn't expect to need so much DEC or everything. At this point, after this town hall, everyone should expect to need, not need, like, again, it's like you don't need it, right? You can use level 1 cards and you can use small amounts of DEC, but if you really want to build out like one of the big powerhouse businesses in land, if you want to be like get a king title or a prince title, and I also, the idea is that the king of the territory that first completes the big project will end up being emperor. I think is the goal. Is there's only going to be one of those titles. If you have any desire to be like part of that, or even with fewer plots to like participate in the big secret project and get the proportional benefit of it, like you're going to need to put a lot into it. It's not just like sit there, oh, I have some land and some cards and I'm good. Like you're going to need to go get a lot more resources and put it in to build out for the future. And I hope that no one comes and says they're surprised and they didn't expect this. That's the whole point of this. So cards and DEC mostly, Rooney specifically, like you're going to need, or you're going to want, if you want to really be at the top of this, you're gonna get a lot more of them.
Awesome.
I'm curious, Matt, because the proposals, all the controversy, everything that's going on right now, it all seems to revolve around the deck sinks. Like, how can we burn deck now? Whether it's the batteries or whether it's the potions or whatever it is, how can we burn right now? And everything you described seems like, holy crap, like I don't know. Is there? Do you have thoughts on like, oh, don't worry about the sinks, guys? Like that's what I'm kind of hearing. But
long term, yeah, that's a really good question because that is behind a lot of the stuff. So long term, I have no worry, right? The whole thing, everything we're doing long term is like insane DEC sinks because that's how you bring value into this ecosystem, right? So it benefits everybody. And for anyone who isn't clear on this, because I still get messages that like don't seem to be clear on this, like the Splinterlands company does not get this, right? All these burns and locking up DEC and spending this stuff, like this does not go to the Splinterlands company. We are not trying to do a money grab here. This is all about how can we increase the value of the assets and bring more value into the ecosystem for everybody. I just want to highlight that because I still, there's still some messages about how like all this stuff is a money grab, and which is weird because like we're actually not getting any money directly, but ultimately will benefit us significantly if asset values go up. And so long term, I have no problem, no worries about this. But there is, this stuff is going to be a little while out. I think we're shooting for like Q3 for kind of these like first things of land to go live, but things sometimes get delayed. And there is benefit though of helping to bump things in the meantime. Right. It helps to Neil McSpadden had a post, I think, earlier today about some of the reasons why you might want to kind of bring this stuff in earlier. There's just all sorts of reasons why it benefits not only the company, but also players to try to like move some of that demand up earlier. And you need to provide, additional benefits for doing that. And that's why I'm not like worried about like DECB. Oh, it's, it's sort of like DEC inflation. You get like 20% more value out of the same money. But like in light of the amount of demand that we plan for there to be in the future, like this is going to be almost nothing. So if it can actually provide a tangible benefit now or for the next 3 to 6 months for like an insignificant thing down the road, like that's a good, risk return thing for me. In my mind, at least. So that's how I think of it. That's why we've been doing these things. Like, hey, it would be beneficial, we think, for the company and the community to bring some of this demand up sooner. And I don't think it will actually hurt things at all or be like more than a blip on the radar once these things are released. But ultimately, that's what's so cool. Like, we propose things, and if the community agrees that it's a good thing, they can vote for it. If not, then it won't happen. And ultimately, like long term, I'm not worried about the outcome either way.
So, like, I'm curious if this proposal right now does not pass, which it's like on the fence, like we don't even know if it's going to pass or not. And that was kind of like the point of the previous proposal with the batteries, is like that was going to be the first use case, I think. So, from a UX perspective, I think that got brought up in, I made some comment on some blog post or whatever, and some people mentioned that about the UX of it all and how I thought there might be a phase in the proposal system between where it's on the Hive post and then it goes on the website. There'd be some kind of interim where the council would be involved or whatever. But I'm curious what you guys' thoughts would be if, like, what if, because when I looked at batteries, when the design team looked at it, we're like, okay, buy buy deck with deck. And we're like, what? Buy deck with deck? Why would we do that? Well, buy deck because you're going to get more deck. What? And leave it to a community of crypto degens to come up with this idea of layered DeFi and all the complexity. And then we figured, okay, no, you're buying deck to get more deck because it's at a discount. Well, why do you buy? What are we doing this for? It's a deck sink. You're burning deck. Why am I burning deck? I'm burning deck to get this future thing at a discount. Oh, you mean a pre-sale? I mean, essentially, that's what we're talking about. It's a pre-sale. So make a proposal to burn deck, and then we have another proposal for potions. Let's burn more deck, and then we have another proposal that says, let's go ahead and give SPS stakeholders basically free stuff. That we voted to give ourselves free stuff, which I know that'll be controversial. Say, well, it's not. It's more than that, Nate. It's more noble than that. We want to incentivize the staking of, well, we're getting free vouchers. We're getting, we already have it staked, and we're asking voters to vote to give those people stuff. So it's basically, yes, I want free stuff. So I would say, hey, look, if there was like a way to wrap all these three, and I'm basically saying, hey, community, make a proposal for this, because I'd love to see this. Take all three proposals, wrap it up with a bow on top, and say, hey, let's make a gated by SPS stakeholders. Let's produce a card, but it costs the equivalent of all the dark energy crystals that would have been burned for the potions, or for whatever, however much deck we want to burn today, right now. That would basically dictate the cost for this card. So it'd be dark energy crystals plus the vouchers, and only holders of staked SPS could participate. Now, to me, that's like, whoa, okay, that solves all the problems from a UX point of view. And so I'll be curious, what are you guys' thoughts on something like that? Like if that proposal came to be, if this potion thing didn't work out.
What? So there's a whole bunch of different things to unpack there. So trying to like go through all the things you said. So yeah, basically the deck B is like a pre-sale, but not for a specific thing. It's like a pre-sale for everything in the future that's going to burn DEC. And the whole like land thing really would just be the land potion concept would really just be a first instance where it could be used, right? So it's not it's not like a separate deck sync really, because most likely, you know, the deck B would be used in it, right? So it's just okay, now here's something you could use the deck B for, but if it doesn't pass, then no big deal. So we talked about earlier when we talked about it, even if it doesn't pass, that doesn't mean nothing will happen, right? A lot of people had other ideas that seem to have more support, right? So if this one's right on the fence, maybe then it doesn't pass, and then there's a proposal for a similar idea that just works a little bit differently, and that goes forward, and then there's your first DECB use. But generally, the whole idea for DECB is like to, you burn the DEC now when the market kind of needs the boost in order to get the benefits sometime later down the road. And so there will be like all this stuff on land. We talked about upgrade. We didn't even really get into like building, upgrading, and the time it takes and how you can speed things up. But that would be spending DEC and burning DEC, and that's where DECB could come in. So there's going to be promo cards. There's going to be all sorts of stuff in the future that DECB will be used for. This particular proposal was just one of potentially very many things. But then the core of your proposal was like, okay, there was this reward card or the promo card thing where you just have staked SPS, you kind of get it. You're basically saying, okay, not just have staked SPS, but also burn DEC and or vouchers to get it. And that sounds good too. I mean, so, that could be a different proposal. The current one already passed, so, we'll plan to do it, and that's fine, and we kind of learn from it. We'll see how it goes. Maybe the next one would be both SPS requirement and burning DEC, but it's up to the community.
No, I'm completely fascinated by how this is evolving. The whole thing, like it feels like the community's coming with ideas. Yaba's in full blown beast mode. Like the future looks pretty bright in terms of wherever we end up. And whatever proposals get passed, and whatever that ends up on the roadmap, it looks like we got it tied. And I know Agrod's like probably freaking out on me because he wants to see eye candy. So
yeah,
I got that ready for whenever we're ready.
I want to see eye candy next, but one thing that's kind of circulating in my brain, we've had this concept of time crystals for a while. So right now, the thought is that DEC, when burnt, should be enough to go get you time reduced for an upgrade. I think maybe we make a separate thing called a time crystal. And the time crystal is what you use, and you use it by either burning DEC, burning vouchers, maybe burning SBT. I think that there's ways that we could use this concept of time and extend it beyond just DEC. The primary resource should be DEC, but now there might be other ways that we can utilize it, or at least for short periods of time. We could say, hey, it's voucher season, so double up your vouchers, and now you can get more time crystals. Or it's SPT time, so go make sure that you're blogging, because you can convert this into a time reduction. So if it's DEC, it can only be DEC. And while that's good in some ways, there are other resources in the game that, sometimes it might make sense to rebalance. So
we
that's
definitely have the lore. Like the narrative team has this whole time thing lore with time mages and stuff. So we don't definitely have the lore to make it fun and to support the idea. My only hesitancy would be like the same hesitancy I had with Deck B is like, oh no, don't add another token.
yeah.
It-
One more token.
Speaking of time,
Um,
though, these are cool discussions, but I don't know if we should be like
We're going
brainstorming and
over.
designing things
Yeah,
right
we're
now in
going
the town
over.
hall.
Yeah. All right, Nate, show us some eye candy, and then let's go get Weirdbeard on for a little Brawlhalla. Let's get Ron on so we can talk a little bit of Splinterlands TV. You know, we don't have tons of time left, but you know, I'm going to stay on. I don't know if anybody else needs to, but I'll stay on and answer questions for an extra hour, and do the best I can. And if folks are here, great, and if not, that's okay too. But Nate, you want to go show us some eye candy?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of all the things that Matt was talking about because that's what I really want to support. So we talked about land. We mentioned that. Well, let me catch people up. I don't know if people have seen this. This is we have a Farpatrod. For those of you who don't know, I haven't been in the land channel. Farpatrod is this beast mode dev that we have working on land that is just like we can't keep up with the guy. And we see him updating the test server with all the cool map functionality. So if you haven't, I'm sure Farpatrod will sometime soon be sharing more and more with you guys. But that'll give you an idea of like turning the territories off and on. And you're going to be able to, you'll notice at the bottom, it looks kind of like a compass. So you'll notice 2 of the territories are lit up because those ones are active, and you should be able to, we'll start integrating, sorting and filtering and all kinds of cool stuff so that you can better see the geography of the continent. And then as you click on those, you'll end up looking at something like this, something similar to that, the whole grid view. You can see what's going on there. Currently right now, if you're wondering, we're still tinkering with how that exactly is going to break down. Flags represent what you own, and then you got a diamond shape for if you have something for listed for sale. And we're playing with different ideas and thoughts as to how that stuff is going to show up. Gray areas are, of course, the unsurveyed land or unclaimed. I don't remember. I gotta go back. It's getting complicated. What else did Matt talk about? He talked about occupied land a little bit. The essences. I could show you some concept stuff. I'm going to go really fast because I know we're running out of time. So these are concepts. This is very rough. This is how we started. We're like, hey, can we get what the narrative team has termed, you might have heard if you're paying attention, Matt's called them fiends. That's the basic concept behind them. These particular type of fiends are going to be known as Daydok, and they come from the nightmare realm. And I have yet to see. I'll probably touch base with maybe Chiclet and the people working on the tower defense game and see, hey, maybe there's some narrative overlap there that we could have with this whole nightmare realm and how these things are spilling forth, coming from the realm of silence and digging their way up into what ends up being the occupied land. We wanted to make sure that these things were just nasty. We didn't want the players sympathizing with them, like there's women and kids at home and they got a family and you got to kill these things. No, these things they want to suck your soul, man. So feel free, no regrets, go ahead and slaughter these things, but you're gonna have a hard time because they're rather big. So here's a more rendered version of one of them. And so as you can see, you see one of these things and you're like, oh man, we got to do something about this. This is a problem. And here's another one. Bam. So you might see these things walking around in your land. And if you do, that means you got occupied land and you better do something about it. So rather than be bummed about it and be like, oh no, I can't harvest wood, like, cause these things keep eating the wood or destroying it or whatever. You could rest assured that, hey, that's okay. These big, huge kaiju looking scary monsters, you can battle them. And if you defeat one of these and slay one of them, you can harvest this essence from the nightmare realm and utilize that to create these item and spell cards. And they're going to be a very valuable commodity. So consider that.
I've noticed that they're not like sweet bunnies where you might have like an ethical problem killing this like cute, big-eyed, darling creature. They're rat-like, they're reptilian, they're nasty.
Let's see. Let's see. I could share maybe one or two other things. How about this? Here, yeah. Oh, I hear Matt. Matt was basically asking for some deed cards, which how about this? Because I wasn't ready for the full deed. I figured as we got further along in the town halls, we would start releasing those. But what I can share is some of the. How about this? Matt made a big point of talking about keeps and castles. I can show kind of like a keep, maybe a mid-level keep, what that would look like.
That sounds awesome.
So I want to set it up a little bit. This is a forest, and big hats off first of all to Alex. Alex, she is one of our artists, our environment artists, and we had a problem because the original environment art, we did a forest scene, right? And then afterwards, we put a building in it, and we're like, oh crap, this looks like Kong Island. The dwarfs, the trees were dwarfing the buildings, meaning the trees were way bigger than the buildings. So we had to go back and restructure it so that it looked natural, having these buildings without the trees like just being ginormous. So she did, and so we ended up with here's a basic landscape with a clearing here for a building. And so once you add in the building, here is a mid-level keep. So here you go. You might end up with a keep on your building. And you'll notice that it looks rather, even though it's an overlay, guys, this is an overlay on top of, it's not embedded within the graphic. This is literally an overlay that goes on top of the forest graphic. And we made a point of trying to make sure that no matter what geography type we ended up with, that the keep would look natural. For example, here's what it looks like. Same keep, but in a canyon. And you'll notice she made certain tweaks to it to make it look natural. It looks like it belongs there. Same thing if you end up in a bog. Let's see a mid-level keep in a bog. We made little tweaks to the highlights and shadows to make sure that it seamlessly integrates with the landscape, even though it's overlaid on top. It's not actually part of.
I want a castle in a bog so badly. The Monty Python references I'd be making. First, we built it in a swamp, and then it sank. So we built it again, and the second one sank. But the third time, yeah, amazing.
The third time they had enough DEC.
Yeah, third time we farmed more DEC, and now we can do it. I want to keep in the swamp. That's what I know.
And
I want to pass in the swamp.
This is not something new, but I'm shocked that we went almost an entire town hall without mentioning that we have an airdrop about to happen. And even though people have seen this artwork already, I feel like, hey, it's about to happen right now. So I'm going to reshare these wallpapers. People have seen them before, but so what? You know, I think it's worth celebrating the fact that Astral Entity, the new Death Summoner, is about to hit the game. So here's the last one's a Battle Mage channeling the Astral Entity in their combat as they utilize these battle cards. So so there you go. There's some fun stuff, and you know, if you want to, I'll be sure to bring deed cards like what Matt wanted to show for the next town hall.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. Other than that, there's not a lot going on here. All right, Nate, thanks for the fast update and a whole bunch of eye candy. Let's hop over to Weirdbeard. Let's go do a short Brawlhalla, and then let's hop over to Splinterlands TV, and then you know we can end there for the folks that need to go. But I'm going to stick around and answer questions until I'm blue in the face. So Weirdbeard, what I don't know. Just first thoughts on all the crap that we just shared today. Like, what are you thinking?
This is a lot. I think it's kind of like, I don't think there's much takeaway yet because it all has to be. Look, that was a lot. I think that was a solid hour and a half of Matt talking, and then Nate comes in with the assist. So, probably need a day or two to be honest.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you can go digest that. If all that we were doing was land, it would have been enough. This would have been a good enough town hall. But that's obviously not all that we're doing. You want to go share some of what we're doing in the Brawlhalla and brawl and the tournament experiences?
Yeah, so we actually had on Friday our first owned Gladiator card tournament. That was another really well populated one. I think we had 232 people entering into that one for a bronze level one. So we're going to be moving forward and having those Gladiator tournaments on Fridays at 3 p.m. EST. So people are going to be able to join in. Sometimes they're going to be ghost card tournaments. Most of the time, they're going to be owned Gladiator card tournaments for different levels, and that'll be a lot of fun for people to be able to continue entering. And there was a really good suggestion about wanting to maybe get merits as some of the prizing to go instead of like doing SPS, you just do merit prizing for Gladiator tournaments.
That's cool.
But so I mean, we'll look into that and figure out if that's something that would be great. But the other thing that's really exciting, and it was mentioned at the top of the town hall, so I feel like people are going to forget about this, but Cryptomancer is getting really close to being able to put the sets implemented into the actual tournaments and brawl system. So we are like made very, very short amount of time away from having sets in, which means true modern tournaments, the ability to have reward and promo cards finally back into those modern tournaments, or if it's like a Chaos Legion only tournament, which is something that's been asked for going on 7 months now, and it's taken forever, but we're there.
It seems like the people want this,
Yes.
Forgive us, it takes time, and Manser was traveling for a lot of that, so he's really like the godfather of all things tournament and brawl. So of all the devs that we have, he's really like the master of those. So it's hard to imagine anybody else doing the work, and it's hard to imagine anybody else doing the work, especially while he's gallivanting about the globe.
Well, even then, it's like this wasn't an easy fix. It wasn't like, I always say, he didn't just forget to flip a switch, even waiting around not doing it. It impacts all card sets, including the ones moving forward. So you have to essentially like start from scratch and come back in and pick stuff up, which is great. So that's going to be coming very, very soon. As soon as that's out, I'm expecting a lot of people to continue entering into those Chaos Legion only tournaments that we have, which are the Scarred Hand Cup tournaments, because people will finally be able to use all of those reward cards and all of the promo cards that they have for those, including Dr. Blight. Dr. Blight and Jane Golem are making a comeback. Yeah, so I mean, we have that. We have that.
Don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years.
I mean, I feel this is a hard follow up to Matt because he came through with all this cool stuff and same with Nate, and then I'm just like, hey, we got a couple of cool tournaments that are rolling right now. The I guess the only other big thing would be we're actually opening up for comments on the brawl phrase. We made changes a couple months ago. It was supposed to be a quick run through, and we say, hey, all right, we made these few changes. So we're going to be looking again here come February, probably middle of February time.
I've seen so many less complaints about it since you guys did. So that doesn't mean that we're done, but certainly like we have taken less heat after a little bit of play testing and tweaks for V2 of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's like it needs to be manicured. You know what I mean? It's another thing that you have to constantly be seeing like where players are at so you can update and change it. And unfortunately, you can't just set it in stone and have it roll. But it's good because it means that it's going to continue to encourage players to go up in the brawl phrase. Right now, we tier 4 is still kind of sparse. So getting more more guilds to move up is always going to be exciting.
Okay. Anything else that you want to share for brawls or tournaments?
No, like I said, keep an eye out from now on. 3 p.m. EST, there will be Gladiator tournaments that people will be able to enter. And again, we just have anything that you have composition for the brawl phrase. Please save it up here in the middle of February. We're going to be soliciting it and making changes after that.
Rock on. Thanks, Weirdbeard. Let's go talk Splinterlands TV and see what Ron has in store for us over there. I imagine you probably gave me a list of shout outs. Let's see how gruesome it is to go share all these names. It's not really that bad. The Jester Gamer, DTM15, Simmerin and Laz. Glad to have you guys be hardcore viewers of the show. You sent me a story about Jeff Opens cards. Should we talk about that real quick too?
Yeah, we can do that right now.
So it's a feel good story that got sent to us. Just want a little request for the town hall tomorrow. Can you please give a shout out to Jeff Open Cards for being generous and showing good human being as I sold my Queen Mycelia in Peak Monsters and mistakenly put the wrong price. The card was in a 6 BCX and I only put it for the single BCX price. I was confused due to my bad day battles and my brain was a little cloudy. I tried to contact him in Twitter and luckily I was able to reach him and he returned the card to me. Thanks so much and God bless you and your family. So that was Capricorn. And, I think that just talks about who our community is. There are scammers within the community and you have to be careful because not everybody is going to be as good natured as Jeff Open Cards was. But, we have a lot of really good people that are part of this community and are actively, watching out for others and helping other people. And, I spend my days very grateful for this community. And that's another story that just kind of came in that I thought we ought to share about how this group works.
Absolutely. And you see that a lot actually on, Splinterlands TV. It's been quite amazing just watching like the audience members helping out new people. Hey, I've never played Splinterlands. This looks cool. What is this? And people just like, oh, hey, here's some cards to get started. I've seen this in Discord over here, like, oh, hey, I don't know what really to do here. Well, you need this card. I'll give it to you. Like this is the kind of stuff that, really sets this community apart from other communities. And I think it's just amazing.
Yep. Now some of that is going to happen a little bit more naturally in February, right? Like there's going to be a little bit more love for the show hosts and the streamers and maybe the audience too. What's that look like? What's going on?
Oh, I think you're talking about FOMO February.
I am talking about FOMO February. The chief FOMO officer is talking about FOMO in February for Splinterlands TV.
Yeah, guys, FOMO February is about to kick off. We're going to kick it off at 12 a.m. UTC, February 1st. And yes, every single, 85% of the shows. So 79 out of the 95 shows that happen weekly are opted in to participate for FOMO February. And we will be giving away legendaries for every single stream that comes on there. And all you have to do to participate, you just show up, watch some Splinterlands TV, maybe enter a keyword in chat, maybe just be active in chat, maybe just, say you want a card. It depends on each streamer is going to do it differently, but every streamer that is opted in will be giving out a couple of legendaries per stream. So you guys, all you have to do is just go watch, and you get to be in this thing because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, pretty stoked for that. We have a lot of cards that the Splinterlands account receives. When we get airdrops and things like that, we're not here to like sell them on the market. We don't want to like compete with players that way, but we use them for promotional purposes. And so, we're really excited to try to, get more audience members participating in this and just growing the base and growing how many people are here, getting the streams better attended. And, here's a little bit of FOMO to help folks in that regard.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be really fun. I think the streamers are going to have a lot of fun with it. I think the audience is going to really benefit from it. And honestly, I don't see a downside at all, except for all the work to make it happen.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
But don't worry about that.
All right. So is there a clip of the week that we should go through today?
Oh man. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, guys. I was actually, I sent Ag a message like, can I play this on the town hall? And then, I deleted it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play it on the town hall.
Alrighty. Is this like filled with swears or something? What are we about to see?
You're going to find out.
All right. Cover your eyes or
somebody knows how to throw a nipple on something. Let's see. Firming nipples. Maybe none here. This is like super mer though. Like these are like where they're so creature and not as much human that I don't expect them to have some. Let's see who else we got. Oh, Shaunus, what you got, baby? You got your curls. We have a lot of bare-chested. All right, maybe we just don't have nipples in Splinterlands. All right. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have a game with just no nipples.
Which I kind of want to ask Nate about that. Nate, is that a creative decision? Is that is that something that was decided at a high level?
No
Is it-
comment.
No comment.
It's a family friendly game. We have removed anatomy from all these folks. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, so rule set incoming. You can only play monsters that have displayed their bare chest. I love it. Yeah, like naked monsters or something. That's a hilarious rule set. I would love to send the narrative team being like, is this one dressed enough to be part of the naked monster club? I don't know. Oh, look at that. We got some on Kron. This is now what the group is going to do. Thank you, Ron. This was amazing. What we really needed was the Splinterlands community diving through all the cards looking for nipples. Hilarious.
Hey, thank Rogue Patton for that. He's the one that started it.
Rock on. All right. Anything else, Ron? We got FOMO February. Everybody should be tuning in literally all around the clock, checking in to see what you can get. What else is on your brain?
That's about it. You guys, we're up to 24/7 Splinterlands content. Make sure you can check out pretty much any single time and get some great Splinterlands content over on Splinterlands TV.
All right, fantastic. So let's go open up the questions. I know. So we have Ron. Are you good to stick around? Are you gonna die if? All right. So let's go power through. These are the pre-recorded questions, and we got a ton of them. So it's 3 pages today. Although one is just a massive long question at the end. Would Splinterlands change older cards if we passed a proposal to do so, either buff or debuff a card, or is this off limits to us? What do you think of that, Matt?
No, I think if the 66+% of SPS stakeholders vote to change a card stats, that's on the table.
Okay. Aggie, I noticed you were voting with your stake more than just your main account. Would you mind telling approximately how much SPS you control personally and whether or not you will vote in the future and under what conditions? Also, would you please be willing to do it all at one time early in the voting process so that it doesn't just creep in depending on how the vote's going? I don't mind you voting your stake, but I think transparency about the way that you use your power will be helpful. I have a lot. So it's the staked SPS is north of 10 million. When I vote, I try not to vote immediately. I actually think it would be pretty bad for me to vote immediately, especially with all my stake, because that skews results, and I don't want to do that. When I vote on things, I'm generally just voting with aggroed and only that account and only voting that way to basically show, do I support something or not? I'm not actually trying to sway votes with it as much as I am just trying to show, am I behind this proposal or not? Or do I not like it? Because there are going to be some proposals that I don't like. And I think it's important the community sees what I like so that I'm transparent about it. The ones where I really feel like I need to get involved and like vote my stake are really around the economics of the game and the tokenomics. So things that lead to burning DEC, you should expect big yes votes from me because that I think is the most important thing that we can be doing. Obviously, you heard from Matt, and there's going to be a lot of this in the future. So I'm excited for those, and anything that I feel like needs a proposal, you can expect my entire voting stake to be there for it. For things like gameplay and things like visuals and things like reward cards, I'm focused on the economics of the game, and I trust the rest of my team to really think about the other stuff. So if it's not based on DEC burning, you probably won't see massive votes from me. But when it is, you can expect them. And I'm trying to vote in the sort of like 3 to 5 day window. I don't want to vote on the last day. I think that's not fair to the community. I don't want to vote on the first day. I don't think that's fair. So if I'm in that like day 3 to day 5, that's where my votes would come in. All right, Land, are you willing to commit to telling us what rarities do, how they work before surveying is allowed, so users can make an educated decision to pay for increased rarity? Like if something is more rare, what's the benefit, Matt?
I mean, the benefit is basically that it just like increases the resource production, uh, significantly at the higher rarities. So the exact amount I don't know, but there's going to be like a limited amount of plots that can produce certain types of resources. So if yours produces like way more because it's legendary, you kind of have an advantage. Now, obviously, if you get a legendary, just regular natural resource plot, that's not as big of a deal as if you get an occupied plot or a magical resource. We'll see. I mean, it looks like that this particular proposal may not even pass, so it won't be an issue. But like, obviously, if it passes, then more information would be available before you would actually go to make the decision and survey the land.
All right. Will we need to ensure a balance between the different base resource produced on land? To this end, will it be possible to move buildings between plots to avoid imbalances building up? Different stages of land might also require different balances of resources, which this may assist with. Do you see the buildings being, movable between different areas?
I didn't plan on movable buildings, but we talked about like repurposing buildings. So if and there'll always be like multiple types of buildings you could build on any particular plot. So if you build a certain type of building, you don't want it anymore, or you can repurpose it to something else. I mean, there may even be options to, maybe there could be even a special building type that just like for a fee converts one resource into another resource, right? So it would allow arbitrage opportunities. If one resource gets overproduced, it's abundant, the price is low, and some other resource is very valuable, maybe there could be an option to, people could buy up the cheap resource, spend some DEC with a building that they've built, and sort of over time start turning it into the more expensive resource. So there's a bunch of different ways like that we can use to kind of correct market imbalances.
Resource scarcity and scarcity of the end products from land will be key to supporting prices. Are there any mechanisms planned to manage this overall balance of supply and demand, always trying to run a large shortage or reducing all land production capacity during times of significant surplus? So one of the things I think of is that you need a lot of competition. So some of these things should just be, here's a set price, but of them should be, particularly for something like the Secret of Pretoria or the research buildings, it should really just be competitive. There might be like individual levels that you hit, but maybe there's not building caps so that these things can be infinite sinks. Do you have thoughts on stuff, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, like, yes, the resources have to be all like there can't ever be enough of them, right? If there's ever a situation where like people are just producing more resources than are being consumed like over a long period of time, like things are going to be worthless. So the whole idea is that like if you want to really build up your lands, if you want to get your buildings to higher levels, if you want to participate in the secret project, if you want to do all these things, provide liquidity, like you are constantly going to need more resources than you are producing. You can't just take a bunch of land and not put anything else in, and like maybe like over a super long time you could do that, but like generally people are going to always be needing more resources than exist, right? And maybe not everyone's going to go, they're just some people might like wait until they can themselves produce the resources they need. But the idea is, since there'll be competition, like Agrod said, a lot of people will just be going out and buying the resources, and so the idea is that there's like way more demand for the resources than there actually is supply of the resources. And then as people start to get like max level things and the demand maybe goes down a bit, then hopefully like items and spells are ready, right? And then that's where all the surplus resources start going in. And then again, you're going to need lots and lots of items and spells. So they'll be used up. And we also, one thing I didn't even mention was like maintenance. So there's also planned to be maintenance costs for the building. So it's not like you upgrade it and you have the DEC staked in the cards on it and it just like produces resources for no cost forever. There is going to be some type of maintenance cost paid, that's part DEC, part other resources. It's going to be designed in such a way that obviously like you can produce more than the maintenance costs, right? So it's not going to be like a negative gain, but like players are going to constantly need to be putting more resources and more DEC in to be able to continue to produce from the land.
Is Splinterlands compiling a very anticipated and comprehensive white paper for the up-and-coming land expansion of the game? If so, when do you think it'll become public?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I was like reading from it while I was talking today for the most part. It is comprehensive and very long, and I don't know. As soon as we really can get all this stuff down, I mean, I'm hoping not too long, like in the next couple months, like we should have it out. But it's
Do you think we can
still
get it
hard.
out in Q1?
That's the goal.
Okay. Yep. So hopefully in the next 60 days or so. All right. Do we expect the last land areas to be more empty? Because certain landowners who have died or lost keys may never register land. If so, would that impact the scarcity of those resources? Might this make certain land resources more rare and therefore more expensive?
So yes, I expect probably, the last regions will be like more empty. Some people aren't going to claim or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. There's pluses and minuses to that. I don't think it's really going to make resources more rare because the resources are pretty evenly distributed. So it's not going to be like there's like a whole bunch of resources that are like only in this one area. That'll be a problem. But like if we're talking about things like competing for this like the Secret of Praetoria project, right? Like the last territory may, not be the most competitive, but that could also be a good thing, right? Because if you're like the big fish in the small pond, so to speak, even though your territory may not finish at first, you may have a higher chance of being the top contributor in that territory, and getting more benefit from it later on when it is finished and getting the king title and things like that.
Previously, the team mentioned item and spell cards created by landowners will not be required to play the game. Is this still the plan? If so, are there any thoughts on how the addition of items and spells will be balanced so that they are not effectively required to win battles if an opponent uses items and spells? Or is it safe to assume someone who uses items and spells will generally beat someone who doesn't use them in a match because of the advantage they provide?
Yeah, I don't remember specifically what we said. That might be a misunderstanding. I mean, the plan at a high level is like it's going to be an upgrade of the game. So like it just includes items and spells. And there'll be like starter items and spells. Like we have starter cards that everyone can just use even if they don't own them. But then you have to, get them in order to be competitive, just like you have to get other cards in order to be competitive. So you're not required to have them, right? You can still play just like you're not required to have cards. But the idea is like they are added into the game. And yeah, if you don't have any and your opponents do, you're probably going to lose. But still like that stuff is a ways out. It's really hard to say anything for sure so far down the road, because things change rapidly. So ultimately, like as it gets closer, we're gonna see what the situation is. We're gonna talk to the community. Maybe there'll be proposals involved, and we're gonna figure out the best way to like add them in and transition to the new thing. But the goal is that everyone's going to need them and want them because that's what makes them valuable, and that's the whole point of land.
Soulbound. What happens with the Soulbound reward cards after you max one copy? I suggest you allow selling Soulbound cards when maxed. I think this is the only way high league and active players get the advantage over bot farms. It will also further incentivize us to play in high leagues. This way, bot farms will be late to the selling game and the card value will already find the bottom. If all players will be allowed to sell Soulbound cards at the same time, this only kicks the can down the line. Bots will flood the market again, only with a delay.
Yeah, so that I mean, we didn't include anything about that in the like announcement post for the Soulbound reward cards. This is one of those things. I would kind of want to see how things go for a little bit. And there's a whole bunch of players have a whole bunch of different ideas and things about how it could work, and like a lot of them are good, but it's a little hard to tell. So I kind of want to see how the whole Soulbound reward card thing plays out for maybe a few months or so. And then definitely, well, we don't have to wait for me or us, but like there can be some proposals at any point. Players can propose things that they want to change it. So this would be a good example of a proposal. I just don't right now, like I wouldn't be able to say whether I think it's a good proposal or a bad proposal until we see how the system works out for a little bit.
How much DEC does a Soulbound reward card need to burn to trade? Is it determined based on the current collection power, or is it a separate burning value?
Well, so that's also TBD for the same reason. Hard to set that now and get it right for a year or two down the road. I would imagine it would be significantly more than the current like burn value or CP, because that's like super 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 small. So like you would need to spend like a bunch of DEC to like infuse the card and have it become, you know, unsoulbound once the set is done being in print. But then and later it can be burned, but you don't. It's a lossy transition. So when you burn it, you don't get as much DEC as was required to make it not soulbound. Is my thinking.
Can you announce the average number of cards one is expected to get in each league tier for the card rewards in the various chests?
Yeah, I didn't check these questions ahead of time, so I don't have those numbers in front of me. I mean, it's different for each rarity of card and each chest tier, but I think like, you know, for like Champion League chests, they could get like an average of something like 8 common cards in a chest, and that's an average. So it could be like, you know, you could get 10, 15 or something. Sometimes you only get 2 or 3. And then obviously for like legendary cards, you know, the average might be like 2 or something, and you know, gold cards, you know, the average could even be like, you know, 1.5 or something. I don't remember the exact numbers, but you know, we did a lot of math and calculations on like the average number of chests that everybody gets in different leagues, the max numbers, like what are our top players getting. And then we looked at like how many of each reward card they would get over a certain period of time, and then it would take like a reasonable amount of time, in our opinion, for like, you know, players to get the cards to the level that they're playing.
For the DAO, how easy would it be to implement a system similar to Star Atlas DAO where you can commit SPS to much longer staking periods for increased vote weight? See this example where PvP equals voting power. I'm sure many people with long-term commitments would do this, and they can be rewarded extra for their commitment. And the most extreme version of that would be, what about burning SPS to give you like some permanent extra powerful voting power?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Star Atlas system, but obviously, like Curve Finance, you know, is a great example of doing this stuff. So I don't think it would be overly difficult to implement. Right, it's just a change in how stake is weighted. So that, you know, that would be an interesting proposal.
What do you think about a burn as like an even stronger than long-term commitment?
Yeah, I mean that's yes, that is even stronger than a long-term commitment.
Rule sets. With the jump to 3 rule sets, can we get it adjusted so it's not so abrupt from silver to gold being 75% of the time? For example, I would prefer gold to have 3 rule sets 25% of the time, diamond 50% of the time, and then in champion would go to 75% of the time.
I don't agree. That I'm not always right on these things. I just think honestly, like the game is just much more fun and interesting with 3 rule sets. So making it less often, uh, you know, in most of the leagues takes away a lot of the fun and interestingness of it. I would prefer to have it even be more common in earlier league. I don't know. Yeah, I'm open to other people's opinions on that.
Can we have the brawl tournament number rule sets adjusted to be the same as a ranked for the league? It makes no sense. A brawl fray has 3 rule sets most of the time, and ranked usually has none, e.g., bronze.
I mean, the thinking there was that, you know, like brawls, and tournaments in particular, they're like different than ranked. And you know, it's less like, you know, newer players, who are like getting used to the rule sets and things. But obviously, if it's like causing actual problems, it's like not as fun or a good game. Yeah, I don't play in those leagues as much. So I kind of leave that to the community and to people like Weirdbeard to look at and make the call.
You hear noise about that, Beard?
I've had a few people reach out, but it hasn't reached the point of it being like, oh my God, our hair's on fire. We need to do something about it right now.
Well,
But we
I
can
guess the
definitely
real
do a survey for it.
yeah, the real thing to me is like, what is actually the problem there,
Mhm.
right? If it's like, oh, I don't like 3 rule sets, that's one thing. Is it like it makes the game less fun? It doesn't make sense. Like the cards don't work. That's
Well, I
a
mean,
different thing.
if anything, I think like bronze, it's probably going to be a big pain, because even then, people who are still in like tier 1 brawls and whatnot and the bronze stuff, they aren't expected to be able to compete, you know what I mean, with a lot of craziness, I guess. But like I said, I don't have an actual number of how many people that's affecting, so it'd be interesting to dig in.
Yeah, if it's just that it makes the battles harder, like more difficult, more skill involved, I would be inclined to keep it. Right? It's not a problem. It's just that it's harder for people. Right? Yeah. Well, brawls and tournaments are supposed to be competitive. But again, like it's just this is what I'm thinking. These questions, I haven't seen them before or prepared. That's just off the top of my head.
Okay. If for tournaments, if I submit a guild brawl or tournament team well in advance, does it check if I have the card again at the time of the battle? I was told early that it does, and I'd lose if the rental got canceled, but I have a feeling that isn't how it works.
That's not how it works.
No.
So the only time that you have the check for the cards are when your team is submitted, not when the other team submits their battles.
Yeah.
All right, bots. What would be the server expected cost increase if the API access was curbed to not allow bots and they came through the website the same as humans? And what would you expect the bot increase costs would be in the same case?
Yeah, this is basically the same as the next question. And I guess I'm glad this question was asked because this whole AP, like limiting the API to bots, it just does not that doesn't work. That's not an actual real technical solution that works. So that's why, the person in the next question is saying, like, what are they missing? Why aren't we doing this like obvious solution? That's what they're missing. It doesn't actually work. So the API, right, is what you use when you use the website, right? When you use the website, that's how websites work. They communicate with the server via an API. And website, the web is kind of like an open permissionless type of thing, right? So anyone can interact with it, and it doesn't have to be through our website, right? Anyone can interact with those APIs just the same as anybody else. So bot operators can interact with the APIs just like everybody else. And there's not even a way for us to necessarily be able to tell. Bot operators can just make it look like, as far as our servers are concerned, that they are using the website. So that whole thing, just like flat out, it is not an actual real technical solution that we could actually implement. So that's why we are not implementing it, because it doesn't make sense. So there there was a proposal actually today. I was surprised it took this long, about banning bots. It was very simple that we should just say in our terms of service that bots aren't allowed, with kind of no other information. I even though I'm against the whole concept of banning bots, I replied to the proposal. So you can look at my reply, where I suggested what I would think would, as far as I can tell, would be the only actual workable solution, were the community to vote to somehow ban bots. Which at a high level is that the community would need to, choose, basically. So there need to be some people chosen who are going to be the ones who decide what is a bot or not. And some
Wasn't-
people are like, yeah, go ahead.
Isn't that essentially like the validator or the witnesses to the validator nodes?
It could
Like-
be. It could be any group of people, right? So, but first we have to decide. So ultimately, it comes down to people. Some people who responded to me were like, "No, it shouldn't be up to people. It just should be like only if you're using a bot or not." Well, I just want to let everybody know that there is no actual technical way to 100% determine if someone is using a bot or not. Right? I know right now some of it is very obvious, but as soon as anyone says like, "Hey, you're not allowed to use bots," um, then the bots could relatively easily change to be indistinguishable from regular players. So ultimately, you need some way to attempt to distinguish the bots, and so you need some people to decide what that method is. How are you going to distinguish the bots? And then you need to deal with what happens when you inadvertently make mistakes, right? So you're going to trap people that get flagged as bots that aren't bots, and they're going to have whatever consequences are decided. and this, you see this all the time in Axie Infinity and other games. Oh, I got banned and I wasn't using bots. I just let my friend play, one time and it was flagged as a bot or whatever, whatever it is. There is no actual way to 100% determine if someone's using a bot or not. So you would ultimately need some group of people, whether it's, me and Aggroed or Splinterlands or the validators or whoever it is, to be in charge. And this group of people would ultimately have the power to say who is allowed to participate and who is not allowed to participate. And so if that is what the community wants, and there's a realistic proposal to do that, which I laid out, like if I supported that, what I might propose, if that is agreed upon by the SPS stakeholder community, then that's a direction we can go. I think it's a slippery slope, to just having like any people deciding who can or cannot participate. I wish there was a technical solution. That's why we have CAPTCHA, by the way. Like CAPTCHA is really the best technical solution that exists in the world right now, for determining bots. And that's even getting more and more difficult because bots are getting better at that. So the only way to like really actually prevent bots from doing it is to require a CAPTCHA before every battle. Which I think would be a horrible experience. But there is, I'm sorry to say, it's not me. It's just the state of technology in the world. Is there is currently not really a way to actually distinguish who is a bot or not if the bots, are trying to not be distinguished. So, I wish it was as easy as saying bots can't access the API, but there is no way to say that because our APIs doesn't know who's a bot and who's coming through the website.
I think I'm gonna conclude that for the pre-asked questions. I know that there's some longer versions of this in the bot discussion, but this is where we keep coming back to regarding bots. So to me it reminds me of like when the Justin Sun thing was happening and the fork was happening, and people decided that Justin Sun assets shouldn't be allowed to be transferred. The only people that really had authority to do that were the witnesses. So like, one way to do this would be to have like a blacklist, have that be part of the validator code. And then, if you wanted your witnesses to block certain accounts, you could go say, I'm only going to vote for people that block Aggroed from being able to earn anything. And then, the only people that really have the ability to assert that are the validators or the elected validators. So that's kind of on my brain of how that might actually work, because we've already seen that system working before, and a lot of people don't want to see individual accounts get blocked. A lot of people want bots eliminated, but a lot of people also don't want to say this account can earn and that account can't. So,
So I'll also mention that I think it was Asgarth from Peak Monsters and Peak D who brought a different solution to my attention, because I think the issue is less about whether it's a human player. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different issues. I mean, one is it a human or is it computer software, right? The other is you just want to limit like you don't care if it's computer software playing. You just don't want them to be able to easily play 1,000 accounts at the same time or 10,000 accounts. So this would address kind of the latter portion, where he suggested like potentially having some type of mining. So like ECR, you have to like use computing power to actually mine it. And when you're using the website, it actually, the code of the website mines ECR for you. So the idea would be regular players would just be mining ECR while they're using the website. And if you're a bot operator with 10,000 accounts, you would need to expend the computing power to mine the ECR for all the 10,000 accounts in order to be able to play on them, which I thought was an interesting and unique idea. It's an idea that's been floated around even before Bitcoin with systems like Hashcash, which was ways to prevent things like email spam. I think, just because I'm saying it doesn't mean it's like, okay, we can just go implement it. I think there's a lot of questions and things that come up with that, and potential problems. So I don't know that it would necessarily work, but it is something, I've been considering and thinking about. So, we are thinking about these things, but I think about it less from a perspective of you must participate a certain way. You must be a human using the website versus a computer submitting commands. And I think more of the issue is we do need to try to prevent or disincentivize people from being able to run tens of thousands of accounts as easily as they can do a single account. So that's the type of thing that I'm more focused on.
All right, let's open this up to all questions. We have about 20 minutes. You guys have heard a ton of stuff, and let's go.
I gotta actually head out because I'm already late.
Okay.
So I apologize that I can't get to more questions. I hope everyone appreciated the land information. We'll plan to share more as we have it. But like I said, it's super exciting. I mean, I'm personally, as a landholder, super excited for this. I wish it was out yesterday, just like all of you. And as I mentioned before, I plan to go buy up a whole bunch of DEC personally. I plan to buy up a whole bunch of cheap reward cards so I can have more max level cards, potentially even more Rooney. Now that this information is public, and you guys can feel free to front run me. That's part of the perils of the business, I guess.
All right. Tanishan is asking, what amount of time do you think someone should have to play in Champion to max the new reward set? Well, if it's 8 cards per chest, but you're not getting that in every single chest. I think he meant the average of chests that you got would be, if it had a reward card in it, it would be like 8 for a common. Means that you need to earn 50 chests of that common. So you would at least 2 months for like a single common, but my guess is that it's longer than that. Probably on the order of like 6 months, maybe even a year, but we'll see what it looks like when it's actually in flight. And it'll also be different at the different tiers. I guess you're asking specifically at Champion, but Commander Chaos is asking, a couple of weeks ago, there was talk that Tower Defense Beta would be coming. Damn it, I meant to ask Matt about this. Any updates on that? Last update from the team is from the 13th. And then how are the team's operating funds looking like? How many months of operation, roughly? Any new investors? So the top one, I think we're looking at February, but maybe Matt will correct me there. Yeah, I think it's end of February, but maybe that's early March, but it was supposed to be in January, but with team cuts and other things and Hardpoint moving to more development than product, things got a little slowed, but I think February. So I don't know, 30 days plus or minus 15. And then how are the team's operating funds looking like? I'll tell you, life is a lot better in January than it was back in December. December was getting a little bit terrifying. I'd still like to see more revenue coming into the business than what is here currently. But I'm not, there's nothing dire. We still have the team. We've not only shrank the number of people, but we've also had some different ways that we have rewarded or paid our employees. That will continue on for a month or two. And then at the end of that, I think we're going to be in an okay spot to no longer do that and really just go back to how we were doing things before. And if things are really booming, who knows, we could even start hiring again and growing. We're kind of slaves to the market. So we'll see how the market goes in general. Fat Jimmy, unfortunately, is asking for Matt. Will you please clarify, does the current land potion proposal directly affect land productivity value? I.e., if the prop fails and we do not use a potion, it sounds like resource production value remain the same and or rarity productivity will be adjusted accordingly, or will we lose land value if the potion prop fails? Your one comment makes it seem like potions will not directly affect land value in the long run, and the goal of the prop was solely for the purpose of burning DEC, i.e., will we get approximately the same amount of resources in the ecosystem regardless of if potions are a thing or not? My answer is no, we would not get the same amount of resources generated. It would be a different amount of resources because there wouldn't be as many, legendary plots and whatnot in there. Jeff opened cards. Can a post announcement be released later today with soul-bound reward card pull rates by Rarity League, as it sounds like it exists? Yeah, if that's not part of the thing, I'll poke Matt or the dev team to release that. It sounds like it exists. You can't reward cards without it. So, all right, Musound. It seems like with the land release, we have to build more buildings, but in guilds, we built a bunch of buildings. How are guild buildings going to be incorporated in land? What about those that contributed a lot to their guilds to build buildings already? Are there going to be extra benefits for land? Are brawl buildings going to stay completely separate from land? Nate, anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I will say I think that was a topic of one of our recent land meetings. Is I brought that specific thing up because when land was first, originally the vision for land, and I had brought that up like 2 or 3 years ago, or whenever we were talking about it. I asked Matt, "Hey, so guild buildings are the template that we're using to kind of build this thing out, like the landscape and the building, and going from level 1 all the way up to level 10, and how that works is it was the template for this. So that being said, it does seem weird that guild buildings they're not on the map. Shouldn't they be on the map? At the time, Matt was like, well, after we get past this individual player owned land, then maybe we could entertain the notion of another land sale, but for guilds, like guild land, and they would show up on the map, and all these buildings that they've been making, you'd be able to go see them right there on the map. They wouldn't just be this abstract thing in the primary navigation of the game. So that did get brought up recently on a meeting as to like, well, is that still something that we would entertain doing? Is that still something? And Agrod, I think you mentioned on previous town halls, or I think somewhere you mentioned it in a planning session or something, which is I'm a total 100% alignment on, is we really got to figure out how to bring in guild vaults. We got to make it so that a guild as an organization can own stuff, can own assets, and that the people in the guild can go ahead and put stuff, cards in the vault, or contribute dark energy crystals to the vault, so that guilds don't have to set up a whole nother Hive account and said, hey, send your guild fees to this other account. It'd be like integrated, baked in to the UI of the game. And I think that would be a kind of, maybe it wouldn't be a prerequisite, but it would definitely be nice to have before we roll something like that out. But having said all that, I would say there's not a whole lot of detailed development and design work on what that would look like, but it is something we're talking about. It's something that we're thinking about. So, I would bring it to the community. If you guys have ideas on cool stuff, put it in the land chat, maybe talk about, what your ideas are for bringing guilds more and more into land. Because I think that's definitely worth doing. Because we talked about earlier in the town hall about players building arenas. Well, why couldn't, guilds already build arenas for brawl arenas? Wouldn't it be cool to see those on the map? And to, know that your guild's a brawl arena is right there next to that mountain. Come over here and do a brawl over here. So that would be cool. But yeah, that's as far as we've gotten with that.
All right, New Age. I've never known how to pronounce the last name. New Age Inv. Exciting features around land and the versatility it brings to the ecosystem. While I'm excited, how do we think of the potential development when integrating into a blockchain? Will resource credits become an issue as more functions are integrated? It will be a key consideration if we intend to leverage blockchain in general, right? Well, there's going to be a lot of this like claiming of resources and different activities that you're going to have to do, but not, I imagine that a lot of that is on the layer 1. There's probably like weekly or daily claims that will happen. So I'm not sure that you're going to have, there will be trading and there will be activity. So it's definitely going to be more activity, but I don't think it's orders of magnitude more. I mean, keep in mind that there's a limitation to the number of plots and land. I expect it to grow, but, I guess the biggest thing to keep in mind is that it's a delegated proof of stake ecosystem. So, even if we do require more transactions and more RC, these are not the most expensive transactions on the chain, and a little bit more activity is generally a good thing. It can drive prices of Hive, and for the new players that don't own any Hive, that's something that Splinterlands will continue to support automatically behind. When will Rooney be able to be rented? Harry, have you seen anything in the development roadmap that tells you when that is going live?
I have not.
I forget
So
if it's
probably
Q1
not for a little bit.
I can't remember if it's Q1 or Q2. I've seen it in Matt's roadmap, so it's
I
taken
think
into.
Q2.
Yeah, I think it's Q2. So we'll get it in there. Let's see. A suggestion: make soulbound reward cards tradable after burning a set USD value in SPS. Interesting, but as Matt said, it should be burning at DEC, not SPS. Question: can we have buildings on land have caps like guild buildings? I think some will have caps. You know, your standard buildings. I see having caps. I see things like arena. You know, some things. You know, I think there should be caps, and in others, I think it should be pure competition. So some amount of reasonableness for, just the standard buildings, but especially for like, hey, if you want to get this giant pot of SPS, I think that has to be as competitive as possible. So, some sort of Fibonacci like increase to each level. That's something that I have in mind. Nachos is asking when salt mines for land. I'm going to need them for my arena: nachos, pretzels, and popcorn. I don't know that we have salt in the game, but I'm going to keep pushing for that before it goes live. What else do we have here? Pockets is asking, there's a title for those that bought a bunch of the packs in Tower Defense presale. Is that title able to be used in Splinterlands as well, or is it only going to appear in the Tower Defense game? I don't think that we figured out everything for titles just yet. So it's a great question, and you're going to have to hold on to it. Does mystery potions could be a thing for DEC? I mean, it used to be, but it's too hard to make balanced things for something that's that infrequent. So I don't see mystery potions coming back anytime soon. Question: what are the exact probability distributions for extra BCX of reward cards? We're gonna try to get that into a post. I can't answer that on the line. Question: how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? It depends on his rarity. Liberty Lass is asking, will the number of arenas built on land put an upper bound on the number of tournaments that can be played in the game? No, there's no limit to the number of tournaments or brawls, but it would be the more arenas of higher level, the more competition there is for that same SPS reward pool. So this question around what Liberty Lass is asking at 6:49 p.m., I think that's where your like unlimited resource buildings are really going to live, and that's where the most competition should be, because that's not just for like wood or bricks or something. That's really for like straight up SPS, and that's got to be something that's just ultra competitive. Potsky's asking, when will the rental problems be fixed? Players are getting frustrated not being able to rent most of the time. It's been several weeks now. This should be a top priority. It is one of the top priorities, getting the market functionality to be like right now. It's ridiculously expensive for the company to be running. It's like thousands of dollars a month. I think last time I saw it, it was like $600 a day. So that's a lot of money that we spend hosting the rental. And we're trying to make it so that it's like way more efficient. We have been in a long bear market, and there are things that we need to do to improve the game overall. And especially, as other things get released, if we don't fix the problem now, it'll cause like a lot of financial problems later. So sorry for your frustration. There should be like an under construction sign or something there. This is like if you were driving in town, you would see like construction of a bridge. You'd be like, wow, that's annoying, but I look forward to what it'll look like when the bridge is working. That's kind of where we are with that. Question: what is the secret of Pretoria? Great question. It's a secret. Unreal is asking, can we have a community leader in charge of, instead of policing conversations and chat channels, maybe coordinate social media pushes by community members where we all use our apparent 165,000 Discord members to utilize their network? Yeah, I really like this. This is part of what I was hoping that Bulldog would be able to do. As sort of like a community manager. But when we did a reduction, we don't really have the role for this. So I don't know, Unreal, you're a pretty big stakeholder. If that's something that you're interested in doing, come DM me, or let's talk about it and figure out how we can motivate the community, because I think that's totally on point.
Also, just so you know, we've had the ongoing community leader nominations that have been coming in, and we're about to release the list of top 10 here this week. So,
do you have sort of like community outreach as part of the scope of that? I thought that was more like product planning, but if that's scope, then yeah, let's put it in there too.
yeah, it's supposed to be like they're supposed to help coordinate. Like that's the biggest word in, what was just posted there, and what they're hoping to do is coordinate so that like everybody's on the same page. It helps get players to know like what are they wanting, and then we also go, hey, this is what we're doing. And it's like those two things together, I think will make it easy to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the heads up. Can we look at considering modern including 3 main sets instead of 2? I'm not personally in favor of that, but if that's really what the community wants, that can be a vote. Or as Weirdbeard, is that something that you hear a lot of in the community chit chat?
That's the very first time that I've had it suggested, to be honest.
All right, we'll see about it. That's not we're not getting tons of feedback for that, so I'll put it on the back burner. Potsky's asking, when will the rental problems be fixed? We already answered that. Unreal's asking, Amazon looking at doing NFT sales, etc. in coming months, apparently looking to partner with NFT Web3 gaming projects. Is Splinterlands looking at an official store? So I've had talks with Amazon. I've been in meetings with them. I don't know what their next plan is going to be. They've had some personnel changes, so it's not apparent to me. But everybody and their mother is looking to get into this space. And part of what I think that this company offers that not a lot of other places do, if you didn't hear me say this last time, we've done 1.8 billion transactions on chain. I would like you guys to find out if there's other dApps that are anywhere close to that. 1.8 billion. And it's probably more. I think it might be over 2 billion now. I gotta double check some of what I was hearing from the ops team, but we've done a lot. It's a crap ton. What's that, Ron? I still don't know what you're asking me. Oh yeah, we can end questions. Yeah. We're done. We got 5 minutes left. Okay, question. Would collection power inflation help to increase cards value? I don't know, but I don't think that that's where we want to go. We're gonna try to get rid of collection power eventually. Drews is asking, is there an end date for community council? Can you explain for those that are not aware?
Weirdbeard? So it's just 3 months, like 3 months on, 3 months off, so that people can't just sit on it forever. And it's not supposed to be a forever thing. It's supposed to be so that people have to stay continuously involved and active in order to be able to, help coordinate things.
I mean, honestly, this is part of what these witnesses ought to be doing. So this is kind of like a pre-witness, gap filler or something, but eventually that should just be, if we have a witness running the validator nodes, part of what they should offer is not just, hey, I can run a server, but hey, I can spread this community far and wide. Do you have an example account that costs on the order of $10, earning at least $1 per season? I guess that's not to us. Question, when will the market problems be fixed? InvestyGator's answering, should be mostly working as of last Friday. There may be periods of delay when bots all throw tens of thousands of transactions per block at us. There's some other changes coming to drastically reduce our bandwidth on the rental data that we think will also improve things. So some improvements already done and more coming. Tower defense stuff, we think it's in at the end of February, and we've answered that a couple times. Azaria says no more questions. All we did is take 3 hours to talk about this. So thanks everybody. Anybody on the panel here with me today, anything else that you guys want to add or toss in as sort of a last minute thought, or what you want the community thinking about?
Shout out Hyde in the chat right now talking about playing Splinterlands every single day for the tournaments. Enter more tournaments. We have more coming out. New tournaments are made this week. And again, please come play in my Gladiator tournaments. They're a lot of fun.
Nate, anything you want the world to think about?
No, I mean, I think this town hall that's run an hour over really, drives the point home that, that we are pedal to the metal. There's a lot going on. And even during the bear and all the saltiness and all the debate and controversy and everything you see in chat and Discord every day, all the time, there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be like really happy about in the middle of this bear market, knowing that you guys are a part of a community of a game that's just trying to, like, you know, just revolutionize things and do things differently and do things in a way that's engaging and you know, just empowering people like never before. So I think it's cool. I think there's a lot to be excited about. So just positive vibes overall, as I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, as per normal, I'm stoked to be here. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to be here. I'm glad I was able to go get Matt on the town hall so he could kind of describe our mad plans for all the things that are land and all the pieces that we put together and what we've been envisioning for years on end, finally coming into life. And I know that there's other things like we want boss monsters and we want this and we want that. And, you know, we'll put all these things on the roadmap as we go. We're putting the things that we think are the highest value for the most people, and we're doing that first. And you know, who knows if the markets continue to improve and there's more resources for the team to put together onto these projects, we'll get more people back, particularly those that we hired in the past. I'd love to see them back and see them working with us. You know, none of the people that we let go that was like a negative on their human soul or something. You know, I personally wrote a lot of you know, thank you notes to those people and just saying, hey, I'm sorry that we couldn't keep affording your services. So I'd love to see them back. I'd love to have these teams grow. And even though we're producing the fastest that we've ever done, and you can see it with, like, I don't know what InvestyGator's talking about in terms of, like, you know, just reading note after note after note of all the things that are going into these next releases. You know, there's always more that we could be producing. There's more that we could be doing. And I just really feel like this game, this platform, this tool has the ability to change a lot of the things around us. And we want to show people how not only can we build a fun game, but we can build something that really works at scale. And 1.8 billion transactions tells me we can operate at scale. So I don't know. The future is bright. I'm excited for land. I'm excited for this community. I need more DEC. I need more cards. I need more SBS, and look forward to fighting you for all of those resources, because there's not enough for everybody, and you should all push and shove. Thanks, guys. Thanks for a great night, and we'll speak with you next week.
FOMO February.
And don't forget about FOMO February, as Splinterlands TV is going to be rocking all kinds of rewards.
Chaos reigns and hope is lost. When your darkest days aren't saved by the dawn, we bring the light to help guide the way. We are with you. We are the Rift Watchers. Have spread far and wide. When you're out of places to run and hide, follow the runes. Help is on the way. We stand with you.